Hello, world. This is a conversation with Adam Hall, brand manager for Boulevard Brewing Company. If you are a Kansas Citian, or even if you just love Kansas City, you are going to love this conversation. We take a look back at the history of Boulevard Brewing Company and talk all things Boulevard beer. From the story of Tank 7 to creation of Boulevardia to how the now infamous Space Camper came to be. If you are a beer drinker or someone who loves the science behind beer making, you will enjoy this conversation. Thank you to this great Kansas City staple and especially our guy Adam for talking to us and sharing these wonderful stories. We can't talk Kansas City without talking Boulevard Brewing Company. This is Enterrupt KC. Enjoy this episode.
Welcome back to Enterrupt KC, the Kansas City podcast. I'm your man D-Rod. I got my boy JL.
Yes, sir, man. What is up?
What's going on,
man,
JL? Man, look at this, D-Rod. Man. Look at this, man.
Listen.
Let's do that. Team.
Yeah, salute everybody. Salute.
Man, we starting off with a salute, man. So you know it's going to be a good one.
You know this is going to be a good one. Can't wait to get to that. Real quick, man, always want to remind everybody, like, follow, share, subscribe, click the button, subscribe on YouTube, man. We're out here around Kansas City, the only mobile podcast in Kansas City.
Yes, sir, number one.
Doing what we do, the Kansas City podcast. Dude, I wore my baseball shirt today. I wore a Royals hat today because Jack Caglione.
Yeah, it's in the news, man.
Listen, Jack.
Did you see the video?
You're gonna be a guest one day. You don't know it yet, but you will be. I promise. Yeah. I did see the video.
Yeah.
I did see the video, man. I cannot wait to see this dude up here. We need it, man.
Yeah. Power hitter, man. Power hitter.
We need runs, man. Like, we went out to the game, man, and it was like 0-0 the whole game. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
But hey, good things come to those who wait, right?
It's gonna be all good, man. And it's gonna. Man, I wanted to also, man, give a shout out to our last episode, man.
Yes, sir.
The celebration of Lisa G,
yes,
man,
sir.
the scholarship fundraiser deal they had, man, and everybody who came down.
Really good to see everybody.
Man, it's good to see everybody smack hands and have some beers with people, you know.
Yes, sir. Rest in peace, Lisa G. We miss you.
Rest in paradise.
Go back and watch that episode. Mike Galvin, Javi Escobar, and Lou Madrigal down there at the Nest, man. They're doing great work in Lisa's name, huh, D-Rod?
Absolutely. And shout out Mike Lopez.
Shout out Mike Lopez, man. You too, I forgot. Chief Stacy Graves, if you've not seen that episode, holy moly, great fun conversation, man. Talk about so many topics, right, that people are interested in and around the city.
Yeah, man.
Fun times.
Great
Shout out my Harmon Hawk, Chief Stacy Graves.
Oh, yeah.
With that, man, I think it's time to interrupt our guest.
I think it is.
And by interrupt, y'all know we mean introduce our guest. I can't believe we're here, D-Rob, but I can't believe we're here.
You know, man, we come here so often.
I know, man.
At different times, man. And we're going to get into all that, man.
I can't wait. Mr. Adam Hall with Boulevard Brewing Company. Yo, man, what's up,
Adam?
How are you guys? How are you? Hey, thanks for coming to my house, man. This is amazing. Yeah. I've done a bunch of podcasts, and it's always on Zoom, or like Teams, and I'm just talking to my laptop. This is dope that you guys are here in our smokestack room. I get to chat face to face. This is rad.
Right on, man. Thank you.
Thank you for the invite, man. Thank you for the space, the love, the time, man. Thank you for Boulevard Brewing, man. I mean, dude, this is amazing to be here, Adam.
Oh man, that makes me happy. That I love, like, right now, like you said, D-Rod, earlier, that was it's a little bit busy right now on a Monday, and it just makes me happy to see so many people here. Because they come here specifically for the beer, to buy a hat or a candle, because we do that now. That's weird,
right?
But it always makes me happy to see it as busy as it is.
Yeah.
People
Monday,
embracing
bro.
Boulevard on a Monday.
Yeah, man, that's great.
I don't know, man. I will say this. Let me say this real quick, Adam. The week I had probably even the weekend. I probably would have came here on the Monday, nevertheless.
Right.
Like, let's go somewhere and have a beer.
And there was even people that we know.
That's what's amazing, right?
You know, we walked in and there was people that we know. We had
Krishna
a
Lee.
a shout out Krishna Lee. She
KC
was in
Glory.
here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So that, I mean, thank you, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Of course.
And hey, man, anytime you ever need us to come back and cover something, talk again,
All
man,
right.
let's do it.
All
Let's
right.
make it
All
happen.
right. You got it.
But man,
Absolutely.
listen, man, we want to come here, man. Obviously, we're the Kansas City podcast, Adam. Don't be mistaken with anybody else. Man, let's talk Boulevard Brewery, man. For
The
those
OG,
people,
man.
man, this is like the OG company, the OG brewery company of Kansas City, man. So if you can, real quick, let's talk about where did this concept begin, man?
Yeah.
When did it begin?
Sure.
How did it begin? All those things, man.
Well, let's talk about Kansas City for a second.
Okay,
Right? So
let's
let's talk
do
about beer in Kansas City.
Yeah.
So KC had a thriving beer community in the late 1800s and early 1900s. I mean, it was massive. There was a bunch of breweries in the town. And then, Prohibition kind of cut a lot of that in half. Now, Kansas City never went dry, right? We were still drinking our beer and drinking our whiskey, but a lot of the breweries had to close down. And then after Prohibition, there was only a handful of breweries that were able to open up and start making beer. And then around the 1960s, like marketing comes into play. And so some bigger breweries were able to use television, radio, and some of the smaller breweries, like the ones we had here, couldn't compete. So they all closed like in the 60s, right? So you had like the 70s and the 80s. It was a pretty bleak time for beer in KC. And that's kind of where our story started. It started with a man named John McDonald. He's our founder. None of this would be here without him.
Okay.
He was born and raised in North Central Kansas and went to KU in the late 70s, graduated with a fine arts degree, and then moved to Kansas City to be a carpenter. And around that time, he had an opportunity. His future wife won a radio call-in contest. You guys remember those? When they would be like,
man.
hey, if
Come
you're
on.
the 99th caller, we're going to...
Yes.
Right? So TWA and one of the local radio stations had a giveaway. And they're like, if you're the 99th caller, we're going to send you on a 3-week whirlwind vacation wherever we fly. And so Ann picked up the phone and she was the 99th caller. So she took John with her on what was meant to be a 3-week whirlwind vacation of Europe, right?
Holy
Because she
shit.
was also an art history major, so she wanted to see where the art history came from.
Right.
Where her mistake was they started in Paris. And she wanted to take in the culture of Paris via the sights and sounds and museums. And John got antsy, and about halfway through their first museum tour, he was like, I gotta go. So he got to get out of there, right? And so he walked across the street to this Belgian beer bar, and he bellies up to the bar. Bartender hands him a menu, and he thinks it's food, because in the early 80s in the United States, there was no such thing as a beer menu, right? You need a menu to tell you the same 3 beers are on tap right?
So was it even hot or cold or what? I mean,
I think
can you
probably a little
imagine?
bit of both. Yeah.
Room temperature.
All of it. Yeah. It's, cold, warm, room temperature, cask strength. But he was excited when he saw that it was like a beer menu. It was like 300 styles and varieties of beer. So he goes back to that bar every day that they're in Europe. They're in Paris. They stay there for a couple weeks, and he tries as many of those beers as he can. He comes back to the United States to this beer vacuum, and he can't find any of those beers. No. And so his wife was working for Hallmark, great Kansas City institution, right?
Of course.
She was a designer, and they went to a holiday party, and it was hosted by one of her coworkers. And the host of the party met John and Ann at the door with some beer that looked a lot like the beer he had in Europe. And he was like, hey, where'd you buy this beer? And the guy was like, oh, I didn't buy this. I made it. I'm a home brewer. And that's when the lights went on, right? John was like, well, if I can't find this beer that I fell in love with, maybe I can make it. So he became, do you guys know any home brewers? You know anybody that makes beer?
Man, I can't really say that I do.
Yeah, well,
I'm sure I do. I just don't know how to do
We know a
that.
guy that makes his own rum.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, it's maybe the same concept.
My guess is he has a lot of friends, right? Like, because
he
he can't sell it, right? You have to give it away.
Yeah.
So John starts homebrewing. He starts making beer, and he creates a lot of friends, I should say, right?
Yeah.
Like, because he's making all this beer, but he can't sell it, so he's just giving it away.
Right.
And eventually, his crowd of friends gets bigger and bigger, and they're like, John, this beer is great. We want to have it, not just at our house, but we want to have it when we go have barbecue or when we go to a Royals game. We want to drink this beer. So they encourage him to take his hobby and make it a career. And he goes to Chicago, attends the Siebel Institute, which is America's oldest brewing academy. And he comes back with the know-how but he needs the ways and means, and he figures he would need about $500,000 to start Boulevard Brewing Company.
So if I could ask you, around what year is this?
So this is talking early 80s.
Early
like 82,
80s.
83, 84.
Okay.
And he, in order for him to get started, he needed capital.
Right.
So he brews a batch of beer, writes up a 6-page business plan and shops it around to every bank in Kansas City asking for $500,000.
Man.
And every single
That's kind of crazy at that time.
Oh, wild. Yeah. And you put yourself in the shoes of you're at a bank and somebody comes and says, hey, I want $500,000 to make beer, right?
Yeah.
You would probably say the same thing they did. Yeah. They said that there was no way that John could compete with the largest brewery in the known universe, which is on the other side of our state, right? So they said it was a bad idea. And it was about 25 in total. I'll tell you a quick story. I was given a tour about 8 or 9 years ago, and we were across the street, and there was about 30 random people. They didn't know each other.
Okay.
And I'm telling this part of the story, and I was like, 25 banks said no. And this old dude raises his hand, and he's like, I got to get something off my chest. And I was like, all right, man, you got the floor. And he goes, I was one of those guys that had to tell John no. And if you've ever seen 35 people turn on somebody, they were out for blood. But he was like, I made what I thought was the best decision financially. No one would have thought that this would have worked out. But John was undeterred. Right. So he sells his house. He used to have a house across, well, he does now, but he used to have a house on the other side of Southwest Boulevard in the west side. Mm-hmm. And he sold it and moved into the brewery. He kick-started the brewery. Basically, went to all of his friends and asked them to kind of put their money where their mouth is. They became early investors.
Oh, wow. Okay.
His parents gave him a little bit of money. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough to kind of get him started. Took him a couple years, but they were able to raise enough money to buy our original brew house, the building that the brew house is in, and then start finding equipment. And in the 80s, like right now, Kansas City, we've got like 60, 70 breweries. It's wild. It's a great time for a beer drinker, right?
Crazy. Yeah.
But back then, no one was making beer, so no one was also manufacturing beer equipment.
Right.
So he had to go back to Europe. And when he was in Germany, he found a German brewer's catalog. It was just like a brewing magazine. And in the back, there was classifieds. And in the back of the classifieds, he found there was a brewery in a really small town in Germany that was going out of business. Okay. And they were fire sailing everything. So he goes and he finds this 35-barrel brew house, which... We put that in the. You guys ever done a keg stand before? Like those kegs that you do a keg stand on? Okay. Everybody knows everyone's done a keg stand.
Yeah.
So that's
Chiefs tailgates, man. They
right
get
there. You
wild.
go. So that's a half barrel. So our brew house, their first brew house, when they brew a batch of beer, they're kicking out 70 of those kegs. So he bought that brew house, brought it back to Kansas City, put it together with his brother, who was a plumber, used some old dairy tanks for fermenters, and found a vintage. They call it a Hoff Stevens keg racking system. It's manual. You have to fill the kegs one at a time.
Right.
But that was what you needed to start a brewery in 1989. Wow. And November 17th of that year, he sold his first keg of pale ale. Put it in the back of Ponex.
Shout out Ponex.
Shout out Ponex. Yeah. I mean, they've been around for 50 years, but if you ever go, you go to Ponex for strong margaritas, right?
Yes.
If you're sitting at the bar,
everybody knows that.
Oh, yeah. There's a photo mural of the day that John tap that keg, and you can see him behind the bar. He looks so young, man.
They still have it on the wall?
Yeah, it's on the wall. It's huge. Yeah, it's in the bar. They're very happy to be Boulevard's first customer.
Yes, sir.
But the beer did very well. Yeah. And, John kind of underestimated how much beer he thought Kansas City would need. He underestimated how thirsty Kansas City is.
The Midwest, man. Come on.
But he exceeded his original business plan in the first 3 years they were open. We were doing over 8,000 barrels. He was thinking maybe 2 or 3, right? Wow. And then we've been growing like that ever since. And now you can find Boulevard in, I think it's like 49 states. And we do send some beer overseas. So you can find Boulevard in places like Europe, China, Brazil, Australia. Yeah. It's not a lot, but it's pretty cool to think that there are people outside of Kansas City that have an appetite for our beer.
Wow.
So my question with that is, in those other states, obviously it's not the wide variety.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, is there certain only like the main sellers, like the pale ale, the wheat, or those? I mean, Quirk has been popping
it's a
off
monster,
the chain.
man.
Yeah.
You would think that, right? So like Unfiltered Wheat and Space Camper are our two biggest volume beers right now. The challenge with those beers is that they're, because we brew everything fresh, it's all natural ingredients. Yeah. They have like a short shelf life. all beer has a shelf life. It's got a length of time that it's going to be good on a warm shelf.
Right.
Beyond that date, things start to break down, flavors change.
What's the average or like shelf life, would you say?
It depends on the style of beer. Like something like Space Camper, I think it's got about 5 months is what we put on it. So because it's very hop driven, hops are one of the first things to drop out.
Gotcha.
Space Camper, Pale Ale, wheat's I think about 6 months. But because of that short shelf life, those beers we don't traditionally send out of the Midwest. Now we have beers like Tank 7, our barrel aged beers. So you can see those barrels there. We have about 5,000 of those, and we can talk about that later. But barrel aged beer by its nature has already been aged, and it has like a 3-year shelf life. So that beer is not going to change for like 2 or 3 years.
Those are the more stronger stouts.
Very strong, like 12,
because
13%.
those are barreled with whiskey barrels.
Yep,
correct.
that's right. Yeah,
man.
Yeah, so those have a stronger shelf life. So if you go to like Texas or Florida or California, you're probably going to see things like Tank 7 or Bourbon Barrel Quad or like the 6 Glass beers that are high alcohol that have longer shelf life.
See, that I always wanted to know the answer to that. But D-Rod, do you know what that is?
Oh my God, man, I'm getting thirsty.
Adam, do you know what that is? That's a salute, man. Salute, man. That's a great story, man.
You know, I just wanted to add that Tank 7. Man, whoever came up with that Tank 7 recipe.
Have you ever heard the story?
No, man, please.
You never heard Tank 7
story?
That Tank 7 is real popular in our circle, man.
So
yes, and by the way, I need to hear the whole like why is it served in the glass that it's served in?
Well, it all comes. It's all going to come full circle.
Okay,
so back in around 2007, we were making a beer, and it's on tap right now called Saison Brett, and it's one of my favorite beers we make. But it's a Belgian Saison that we inoculate with a wild yeast strain when we put it in the bottles or kegs. It's keg or bottle conditioned. Okay. And that Brett is a little bit funky. It's like barnyardy. It's just really complex. But around 2007, 2008, we're wanting to make a batch of Saison Brett. But that yeast is really finicky, right? It's hard to control. It's hard to get it to do what we want to do. Okay. And so the yeast hadn't propped up. It hadn't grown enough for us to add it to a tank of this Belgian Saison. And so we had this fermenter full of this beer, and rather than dumping it, one of the brewers was like, hey, what if we like dry hop this? What if we just, put some hops in there? Right. No one's, people don't dry hop Saisons. So they did it. And then over the next few days, if you ever come into the brewery and you'll see our fermenters, they have a cone at the bottom. They're like the large cylinders that you can see from the street, right?
Yeah.
At the bottom, there's a cone, and at the bottom of that cone, there's a valve. That's a sample valve. And the lab uses it. The brewers use it when beer is in the fermenter to test it, like every few hours or every other day. Right. They're going to make sure that beer is developing. And so when this dry hop Saison was in that fermenter, the brewers would come by and take a sample out. Mm-hmm. And some of the best places to try a sample is like the patio, of our brew house. So they'd be out on the patio drinking beer. Yeah. And people would walk by, and they were like, what are you drinking? And they're like, we don't know. It's whatever's in tank number 7, because it was in a fermentation tank vessel number 7. Okay. And that tank, so all of those tanks too, fermentation is very temperature driven, right? It's got, yeast needs the right environment to produce like world-class beers. It can't be too hot, can't be too cold. Right. So all of those tanks are double walled, and in between those two walls is a glycol jacket that brewers can use to control the temperature, the internal temperature of that tank. With that original Tank 7, the glycol jacket was kind of a pain in the butt. Mm-hmm. And the brewers hated using it because it was very manual. They had to be on it all the time. So they were like, whatever's in tank number 7. So those people that were coming by would go grab a sample, come out to the patio. More people come by. What are you guys drinking? Whatever's in tank number 7. So the brewers became really fond of this dry hop Saison. Yeah. So then there was a beer fest. It was Power and Light was relatively new.
If the brewers are drinking it,
it's got to be good, right?
It's good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Man.
So there was a beer fest in Power and Light, and they put some of this beer in a keg, and that won like Best in Show, right? Like that was the fan favorite of the fest.
Wow.
So the brewers came back to our marketing department at the time. They're like, we have this beer, this dry hop Saison. We think it's great. The consumers, beer drinkers think it's great. We need to make this. Right. And the marketing was like, awesome. When they were like, we got the perfect name for it. We're going to call it the Poet of the Plains. And the brewers were like, hell no, we're going to call it Tank 7 because it's the only thing that tank ever did that was worth a damn, right? Yeah. So Tank 7 was born. Now here's where it's crazy, right? So we produced Tank 7 in draft first before we put it in bottles. And Kansas City being Kansas, look, you guys know, what do Kansas Cityans love more than anything else in the world?
Barbecue.
Kansas City.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Kansas
barbecue. Yeah, barbecue in Kansas City.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kansas City, man.
So when something is new in Kansas City and it's made here, we're really quick to embrace it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and if it's quality,
Absolutely.
if it's honest, if it's authentic, then it's going to stick around and
Sure.
we're going to continue to do it, right?
Right.
So that's the way the city feels, you know, about beer and specifically about Boulevard. So we put out this new beer and of course bars and restaurants are like, oh, new beer by Boulevard, we got to put it on tap.
Yeah.
So it's 8.5% alcohol, right? You guys know
Yes,
this.
yeah,
Tank,
we know that,
Tank
man.
7 is 8.5% alcohol, really easy to drink, super approachable. That's the good news. The bad news is it's 8.5% alcohol. It's really easy to drink, approachable. So there's a sports bar. I'm not going to name names, but there's a sports bar that at the time was doing like, you know, like Wacky Wednesday, like $2 pints, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so, or like $3 schooners.
Oh, yeah.
And so the next day, this bar calls and they're like, what the heck is in Tank 7? People were like falling out of their stools and getting crazy. And we're like, oh, it's alcohol. It's 8.5%.
Yeah, it's 8%.
So then we had to do it. We had to be introspective and be like, what is an appropriate serving size for this beer?
Yeah.
And so the Tulip was born. So the Tulip is like 10 to 14 ounces rather than like a 12 or it's like 8 to 10 ounces.
8,
so,
I think.
so not 12 ounces, not a 16 ounce pint.
Right.
And then also it makes it a little bit cheaper, you know. So if you're going to buy 16 ounces Tank 7, it'd be pretty pricey. So 8 to 10 ounces it's economical. It's also responsible, and the glass just looks pretty. And it was developed by a master cicerone we had that was here that was like, this is going to provide the best sensory experience for this beer because it's got a lot of aroma, it's got a lot of flavor.
Yeah, it does.
And so that glass was born, and we were able to rein in some of the nonsense that was happening at the time.
Yeah.
You know, that reminds me of the movie. What you telling that story?
Beer Fest?
Is it? What is the movie with
Great
Jim?
movie, by the way.
Yeah, that's a great movie. The movie with Jim Carrey. Where he loses his job and he goes to the bar and he's acting crazy and his wife is asking the bartender like, Dick and Jane.
Oh yeah.
Dick and Jane. Thank you, Jack. And she's like, how many did he have? And he's like, he only had half a beer. You know, sorry. That
It was a half a Tank 7 though. That's the thing.
Half a Tank 7 was the problem.
Right.
I seen that there's a tropical Tank 7 now.
Yeah. Yes.
Is that fairly new?
So Tropical Tank 7 was a innovation last year in a mix pack, and then we brought it back. It's going to come back in its own 6-pack later this summer.
Nice.
And that's like Tank 7 has always been. You know, like Tank 7, when Tank 7 was born, it immediately started winning awards. It quickly became, I think, our number 3 volume for the past 15 years.
Crazy.
And that's a beer that when we were entering all these new states, we would send Tank 7 because a dry hop saison is not something that's widely available.
Yeah.
And like, you know, nowadays you go anywhere, every brewery on the corner is making a pale ale or an IPA.
Right.
So we need to send something that stands out. And Tank 7 is just quality. It's got name recognition. And so for a long time, we were like, we didn't want to mess with it.
Yeah.
We didn't want to change. We're never going to change the recipe of Tank 7. But our brewers were like, it's got like great structure. Like we can do some stuff with
Right.
it.
Yeah.
And so we started about 2 years ago. We did a hoppy version of it called Dank 7.
Yeah.
It is pre-legalization too here. You know, this is we knew it was coming.
That, man.
So
remember
Dank
that.
7 came and it was a hit. It was like a Belgian style IPA.
Okay.
And then the brewers are like, we got to do something else with it. You know, Dank 7 was great. So they were like, it already has, Tank 7 has kind of like a citrus flavor to it, like a lot of grapefruit. And they're like, what if we just threw in some tropical fruit like passion fruit and orange, maybe a little bit of guava.
And that was the Dank?
And so Dank 7 was just like 7 different hops. It was just bonkers hoppy. But Tropical Tank 7 was us getting silly with like fruit flavors,
Fruit
fruit addition.
Hence the tropical.
Hence
right.
tropical, yeah.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I'm just thinking like you could probably spin Tank 7 into several probably different things, but man, you also at the same time you don't want to do it at the cost of the original, right?
And that's right. We have to be very ecumenical about it. We have to be like, you know, deliberate if we're going to put something out there. So one thing, like whenever you see a new beer by Boulevard, you guys have been here. You saw at that small bar, right?
Yeah.
So in the beer hall, we've got one big bar that's got like all of our year-round stuff, all limiteds. But then there's a smaller bar that we call the test bar. Because we have an innovation brewer, his name is Greg Garrity. Okay. And Greg he's got a lot of ideas. Yeah. Some of his ideas are amazing. Some of them are a little left of center, right? Yeah. You know, like some are a little far out. And he wants to make these beers, but we can't produce, you know, every idea he has. But with the test bar, we can, because we can do small batches of these ideas, and then we put them on the test bar, and then you know, it'll say like, you know, like test I think what's up there right now, we have this this beer that we did that was like 19% alcohol, right? We have a test ESB. We've done like a carrot saison. We've done some pretty wild stuff. But it'll just say test whatever the style is, right? And then if people buy it or if people order it, there's a little QR on the bar that says like, tell us what you think. Yeah. And so they scan the QR and they get a 3-question survey. And the question 1 is just like, what'd you buy? What'd you get?
Gotcha.
And so they'll write it down. And then question 2 is, did you like it? Yes or no? Yeah. And if it's yes, what did you like about it? If it's no, get out. No. If it's no, what did you not like about it? Right. And then that's it. And then at the end of every month, we look at that bar's sales and like what did really well this month. And then we'll look at it. And if there's a test beer that performed well, then we'll go dig into those surveys and then see like, you know, people are like, oh, the test ESB, I had 3 of them. You know, I thought it was so good. Or, you know, this other beer I didn't really care for. And so we take that information and we say like, okay, Greg, you hit the nail on this one. This one, maybe not so much. Let's put it on the back burner. But then we can stop making the things that don't work and focus on the ones that did. And then that saves us time and energy and money and resources on stuff that we already know probably isn't going to go further than the beer
How
hall.
long have you been doing the test bar?
We opened the beer hall. This building is our beer hall. We opened this July 4th weekend of 2016.
Okay.
So that bar has been in use since then. Yeah, since then.
Wow. And the brewers you have here, man, I mean, are they long-standing brewers or any since the original days?
Yeah,
or?
so there's a handful of brewers. In fact, next month, one of the brewers, his name's Eric Bessenbacher, a longtime Kansas City guy, musician. He's been here forever. He will celebrate his 31st or 31 years working for Boulevard.
That's awesome.
And so there's a handful of guys that have been here for like 25 plus.
That are brewers.
Brewers, yeah. And, you know, that's kind of like the old school.
Yeah.
And then we also, you know, if you're a brewer, you probably know the quality of products that Boulevard is putting out, and maybe you don't want to like, and I don't know why you wouldn't want to plant roots here in Kansas City, but maybe you want to have a career as a brewer, but you want to live in like Asheville, North Carolina or something, right? So we'll have a lot of younger guys that are relatively new to the industry that will come here and work for a couple years, learn how to scale up recipes, learn the techniques, and then they will take that knowledge off to somewhere else and make amazing beer there, and it just kind of cycles through. So we always have, you know, we've got about, our brewing team is maybe 15 to 20 people. I would say half of them are fellows or you know, brewers that have been here for a long time, and the other half are relatively new, established and knowledgeable, but still like, you know, wanting to learn.
Those some big shoes to fill, man.
Totally,
man. You know what I mean? I mean, just you know, and we all know, everybody who comes here and knows this Boulevard, man, the wide range of flavors that that they produce, that you guys have here, and for any type of new guys who's looking to get into that, man, I mean, that curiosity, that you know, the ideas to come up with all them different flavors, man.
That's one thing I love. I've loved since I've been here for 11 years, and it's always it's this environment of the best idea in the room is the best idea in the room.
For sure.
It doesn't matter who said it. Right. So like we have ideas for beers and quirks and stuff, flavors or flavor combinations that come from all over the brewery. And while they maybe, you know, they have no experience making the beer, they're like, have we thought about doing something like this? And then the brewer's like, hey, that's a great idea. Let's give it a shot. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least we've tried.
Well, that's awesome that they even take that in consideration.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everybody got a flavor. Everybody got a you know, a taste of what they like.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. It's subjective. Yeah.
You want to hear something crazy, Adam, D-Rod? I never knew what Space Camper looked like.
Oh, you've only had it out of a can?
Only
You never had a
draft? Out of a can, man. I'm like, I didn't know that this is what Space Camper looked like. It looked so like yellow. You know,
when I'm sitting here thinking about that, I mean, just to go back a little bit with Tank 7, because that beer is so badass, man.
The name
on them, on the bottles. So I remember, I think correct me if I'm wrong, when you come out with a new beer,
Yep.
are they bottled in a in what size?
So those bottles that you're talking about, those are called a 750 milliliter. Right. That's a champagne bottle.
Yeah. So, but because I could have swore when that Tank 7 came out that I was gifted a bottle of that.
It came. Tank 7 was originally packaged in that style.
Is that like the beginner bottle to see how it works, or
I mean maybe back in the day,
like
and that was it. It was like
is that what it is?
And that was it. The idea was to put it in a big bottle like that because we imagined that these big beers were for sharing, right? But then you have idiots like me who like I used to.
Me too,
when I first started working here, we started like expanding our barrel age portfolio, and so there were beers like that were like 13 or 14%, and I would take those home. And I would like pop it by myself, like turn on Netflix and like start drinking. And like 4 hours later, Netflix like, you still watching Drop Dead Diva? And I was like, man, I was 4 hours ago. I don't know what happened. But we made the decision to like change the format from like one big bottle to like 4 smaller bottles because it was just again made more sense for like you can still share a 4-pack, but if you don't have to, that's a commitment, right? I mean that's a commitment to yourself that tomorrow's going to suck.
You're going to be dedicated. Yeah. Well, I'm almost positive
that's a Chiefs playoff game.
That I still have that bottle.
Oh, it might be worth something. Who knows?
Man, I think it's in my. I swear, I think it's in my fridge. And
you can still drink it. It probably won't. I suspect it won't taste great, but nothing. That's the cool thing about beer too is like
alcohol.
Like beer. There are people out there who are like really beer enthusiasts and they collect beers and they'll sell them and then they'll have parties and they'll be like, hey, let's open this beer. I've had it since 2015. Yeah. The tragedy is that beer is probably not as good as it used to be, but I love this idea that people are so passionate about something that they're going to collect it and then share it and then talk about it.
Yeah.
Where we get in trouble, I would say in trouble is not the right word, but sometimes, because social media being social media, we'll have somebody on social media and they'll be like, I just had a Saison Brett, and we're like, that's awesome. That beer is amazing. And they're like, yeah, it tasted off. It was funky. It was oxidized. I don't know. It just wasn't as good as it used to be. And we're like, oh, okay. Well, when did you buy it? And like, 10 years ago. Yeah. Like, well, that's you. Yeah, you added 10 years to this. So we didn't add that. You added that. Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I'm going to give a shout out to Ray, man, which you know him. And I'm almost positive that he gave me that bottle.
Hey,
I believe it. I believe it. Yeah.
Shout out Ray, man.
Absolutely.
Is there a way to like preserve a beer or a bottle for a long, like let's say 5 years? Sure.
There is. If you keep it out of light, like that's like UV, like these lights aren't too bad, but like fluorescent lights, sunlight, that's going to kill a beer
for sure.
Quick. Yeah. Big temperature changes will also like shorten a beer's life.
Right.
So if you like say someone out there is like wants to age one of our barrel aged beers, that's the other thing too is you have to look at the style. So like we have a light lager, right, and a Boulevard Light. You probably wouldn't want to take a Boulevard Light, put it in the cellar, forget about it for 5 years and come back and drink it. But these beers that have sat in whiskey barrels, so like Bourbon Barrel Quad, that beer rests in whiskey barrels for about 2 years before we even put it in a bottle. The wood, the whiskey, the alcohol, all that stuff kind of preserves it.
Yeah.
If you put it in a relatively cool cellar where there's no light and no temperature changes throughout the year, that beer will probably it might develop in really cool ways over those 5 years. But that's the fun thing too, is that it could or it could not. And when you open, you won't know until you open it. And that's kind of, I think that's kind of fun, right?
Yeah, man.
But as long as people be like, this beer sucks. Like, well, it's 10 years old. What do you want, man? Or this beer's awesome. Yeah, that's intentional.
I was wondering, man. So Adam Hall, man. So first, what's your title, man? Just so we cover that.
So my current title, so my current title is I'm called the brand manager of culture and innovation. It's a mouthful, but I work in the marketing department. When I started 11 years ago. I was in the service industry. I worked in a bunch of restaurants around town.
Are you original KC?
No, you know what? So I moved here in 2001. I was born and raised in Virginia. I joined the Marine Corps. I was in the Corps for 6 years. I moved to England, lived there for a while. And then when I was in England, I had a buddy who lived here in KC, and he was like, I got a job for you if you want. So I moved here, and I had never really been to KC before.
Yeah.
And I'm always jealous of people who were born and raised here, but at least I can say, like, man, you were born here. I chose this place, right? Like, I chose KC because
you weren't trapped inside the 430 walls your whole life.
Yeah, no, I'm jealous of those who were, but it didn't take me very long to really fall in love with Kansas City.
Oh, nice, man.
I mean, like, I had been here maybe 6 months, and I was like, this place is for me. I was like, there's something special about KC. Yeah. It's just big enough that there's plenty to do, a lot of great food, a lot of great people, but it's small enough that you don't have to deal with a lot of the annoyances you get with cities that are like double our size.
Yeah. Well, and you hit it at the right time too. I mean, like you said, 11 years roughly.
No, 2001 is when I moved here. Yeah,
okay,
I've been at Boulevard for 11 years.
Boulevard for 11 years. Yeah. But I mean, man, just in 24 years, man, you've seen Kansas City go to a different
transformation, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so blessed to have been here for like the downtown redevelopment. Like when I first moved here, there was just nothing there, like nothing to do. Right. I'm also like super blessed to have seen like the 2014 and 15 Royals run. Man. That was I'll remember those two postseasons for the rest of my life because that was just the best time to be in KC. It was amazing. And then to have been, to adopt the Chiefs when, by all accounts, they weren't all that great for the first 10 years I lived here. Fun to watch, great games to go to, and then to watch this team kind of turn around and become a dynasty. Yeah. Like these are, I really like, imagine you're 5 years old right now and you're like the hardest core Chiefs fan. You've never known them to not lose. Right. And then you're 15 and you're like, what happened?
Listen, I got a 16-year-old son, Adam, and at least to where the part he actually paid attention, let's say the last 10 years, Alex Smith, then you got Mahomes jumps right in. I said, dude, you only know a winning team. Because he'll tease me like, man, you cheer so hard for them. I'm like, you have no idea. You have no idea how long we've waited for this. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's dope, man. So I imagine in your role, man, you get to move around a lot. You travel quite a bit.
Yeah. So so my job is currently. So I went from being a tour guide part time on the weekends, and I loved it so much. I was working at the High Dive Lounge. You guys ever been to the High Dive on 39th Street? Yeah. So I was working there, and then I was working here on the weekends. And so I would bike down here in the morning, work all day, bike back to High Dive, work all night, wake up the next morning back here because I was like no sleep. Right, and I just was obsessed, and then I annoyed the hell out of the brewers. Like during the week, I would just come down and be like, "What are you guys doing today? You dry hopping? What does that mean?" I wanted to learn. I wanted to ask questions. Like Ray, my God, he was a gem when I first started because he was like. Answer every single question I had. Joey Montoya, he and I, we bonded pretty early. He's that dude is a real one, right? That guy is. He is one of my favorite people that works here. But he was also one of the first people I met when I started, and has been just a source of information. He knows so much. He's just a great guy.
Yeah, they're knowledgeable, man.
And then I stopped working in the restaurants and I became full time here. I helped open this building, and then when this was up and running. I moved to the sales team because I wanted to take my passion out into the market. Right. So I was I basically was what we call the on-premise manager for Kansas City. So any bar or restaurant that sold Boulevard, I would call on them. I would go there, I would hang out, do promos or stuff like that.
Nice.
And then I did that in Kansas for a couple of years, and then I just missed being on site. So in 2020, I joined the marketing team. No idea about marketing. I don't have any marketing experience, but I
know how to talk things up, though. That's right.
That was it.
Yeah, it matters.
My resume looked good, and my interview went well. And then, so now my job is I work really closely with our sales team and our production team. So they're two different departments that don't speak the same language. Sure. And so I help kind of mediate, answer questions.
I'm sure they're at each other's throat. Right, the sales.
The sales is like we
need it. Yeah, like man, hold on.
We're working on it. Yeah, or the sales is like peanut butter and jelly beer. That sounds great. We'll sell 1 million of them. And the brewer's like we can't brew with jelly, man. But the reverse works too. So the brewer sometimes will be like, we have this rad beer that we love that we want to make, and the sales team is like, that beer is awesome. it won't sell. Like, you know, they just, we can't do anything was too expensive or just there's no positioning for it. So I kind of help mediate that. We do a lot of development of flavors, like new beers. I work with them, like, you know, developing new products. Right? But then a lot of what I do is a lot of education for like Boulevard and beer. I travel around. I work with our wholesaler network. So I'm at any given time, I could be in any city working with our wholesaler. And then also like while I'm there, I'll like work with our retailers, like people that are selling our beer. And then a lot of consumer facing stuff too. So like beer dinners or hosting beer events or samplings or just education.
How many like would you say? I mean, you give tours. You know, walking in earlier, you can see one looked like either started or was in one of the two. How many tours do you guys give? Do you know a year about?
Oh man, that's a great question.
A week, I don't know.
So I know every day we offer tours, and I would say on average every day there's usually like 6 to 7 different tours, and we have there's different types of tours too. So there's like the public tour. If you're just like, I'm looking for something to do, you come to the brewery and you take like an hour walk around the brewery, learn about how we make beer, the history of the company. Then we have another tour called the Smokestack Tour that ends in this room. It's sort of the same thing. You go see the brewery, get in the weeds, and then when you come back here, and this tour is actually pretty cool because it goes beyond just how we make beer, but it's a lot about how beer and food work together. So when you're sitting in this room, you're sitting down with 4 different beers and then 4 like plates of food, different bites that have been curated to specifically go with that beer. And then we talk about like the flavor interactions, how things resonate or contrast and create. How to pair it. And that's a really good one. That's called the Smokestack Tour. And then on the weekends, I think they do this tour called the Unfiltered Tour. And it's 2 of our like saltiest tour guides. These guys are, I mean, and I think even on the website, it's like, it might be a little blue, you know, like just to get ahead of any complaints. These guys are kind of off the wall. But that's like a 2-hour tour of the brewery, and those guys are super entertaining. That's nice. They've got a lot of, a billion stories.
Do the tours cost?
They do. So I think that the public tour is like maybe $5 or something like that. It's not much. And then the Smokestack tours, I think they're in the neighborhood of like $20. So
per person.
So, and then those are the tours, and you talked about the food and the tasting. Is all that included with each tour, or is it different price breaks, right?
Different price points. So the public tour, what we call the public tour, they'll, it's like 45 minutes to an hour. And then I think on the tour, you get to try 2 different beers. And then they land in this room right down here. And they have an opportunity to taste an additional 2 or 3 different samples of beer before coming upstairs and having beer. And then hopefully go to the gift shop after having beers. That's when you make the decisions, right? Man, and then the Smokestack Tour, everything is included. So I think they do a couple beers on the tour, and then you have lots of beer at the end of the tour. We're responsible, and we give us some food.
So the Smokestack's probably the one that I would want to do.
I think you should. I'll hook you guys up.
Tasting,
if you guys are down for it, I'll hook you up on a couple spots. It's really fun.
Absolutely. And let me just, man, I gotta confess, right? I gotta confess.
I want to confess something after you too.
Okay.
I have never done a tour here.
Really?
I've I tell the truth, man. I'm honest, man. I have not. I've always wanted to, but I think at one time it's certain time frames, right?
Yeah, it's from. Yeah, I think the last tour during the week maybe leaves at like 4:00, and then on Saturdays the last one might go at 5.
Right. So during the week, I mean, like I've had homeboys, man, that come down that have done many times. Shout out Carlos, man, Carlos Ramirez. He comes all the time. And he brings family members that are from out of state, like his father-in-law, that come down here doing stuff like that, and they come. He just came and he said, man, I'm gonna go do this tour, but I'm working, I can't get off.
Totally, for sure.
Yeah. So I gotta admit, I've
not done a tour either, so yes, we need to do a tour.
We'll definitely sort it out.
But I want to admit this. So you talked about food and beer. I remember, and it might not have been the first time I had pale ale, but it had to have been the first time I had pale ale and like remembered it. And that, I'm not saying that because I was like crazy, I know. But it was because of the food that I had with it. So shout out Minsky's. One of my uncles, I believe, he bought a 5-star cheese pizza from Minsky's.
All right.
And if you've not had that, it's incredible.
It's solid.
By the way, Minsky's owner, we need you on this podcast.
Yeah, you do.
And I remember he had a pale ale, a case of pale ale, cold as hell though.
Yeah.
It was cold.
With the 5 cheese?
With the 5 cheese. Yeah. And so I'm like, man, okay, like, here's the other thing I'm missing. this is several years ago. I never drank beer with eating food.
A lot of people say that.
Yeah. Up until this moment in my life.
Yep.
So this is early 2000s. And so I'm like, all right, well, hell, I'm going to do it. So I grab a pizza.
And beer,
Pizza
and beer.
I take a swig of the beer, and I'm like,
it does something.
That tasted really good.
It does.
It's so good. I remember it to this day.
Yeah, man.
So let me tell you why that worked. So that's a great pairing. So pale ale on its own has a lot of it's hoppy. There's some bitterness on the backside, but it's not like Space Camper. Yeah. It's super malty, a lot of caramel, a lot of sweetness. So you take something like the 5 cheese pizza, right?
Okay.
It's fatty because of the cheese. It's super savory, right? And you got that kind of that bready crust.
All that flavor.
Mm-hmm. So the malty bready character of the beer is going to resonate with the crust pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But then beer has alcohol, it has CO2. Those two things are perfect for anything cheesy, because when you eat cheese, which I do a lot, it leaves a layer of fat on your tongue the more you eat it, and then you get kind of what they call taste blind, where you're diminishing your taste with each bite. Because your tongue can't receive the flavors because you've got this fatty layer of cheese.
Okay.
So when you take a sip of the beer, you got that savory, cheesy, fatty, salty bite of pizza.
Yeah.
Then what you're doing is you're contrasting it with the sweetness of the beer, but also the alcohol and the CO2 are going to act as like kind of a scrubbing agent. It's going to lift that layer of fat off your palate, so that every bite you have is almost like your first bite. So you take a bite, take a drink, take a bite, take a drink.
Here's the thing, dude. Down to a science. Yeah. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
I was like, how come every time I take a bite and drink it's like I'm taking a bite the first time.
Yeah.
Literally, I remember that so well, man.
Yeah. You've been in the restaurant business for a long time, right?
I was, yeah.
Okay, so that's almost the same concept. And to this day, whenever I go eat pizza, JL, I'm getting beer with it. It's pizza and beer, man.
Well, yes, absolutely. Now, absolutely, and pale ale for sure.
But what you're talking about, that, like I've learned this because years ago I bartended, and when I was bartending, they said that there was this drink. I don't know if you remember this or not. It's called a Dubonnet cocktail.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right, and that's an old school drink. It's made out of a bottle of Dubonnet wine.
Yep.
Right, and they said, man, when you go for primarily, I think it was seafood. Or no, maybe it was meats. I can't remember. But take a sip, take a bite. Take a sip, take a bite. And it's like, man, it just resurrects them flavors of everything in there. I can't find a Dubonnet cocktail.
Adam hit it down to the equation. He was like, listen, X squared over 3.
And that makes absolutely sense all the way, because of what's all in here and how it matches and pairs.
Give me another pairing. I got to try. Like you would say, yes, do this.
All right. So, like, what would you have later to eat this week? You give me some food.
Okay, let me tell you what I'm not eating this week. Mexican food, because I'm getting ready to go out of town to a huge Mexican city, and I told my wife I'm not eating Mexican food this whole week. Don't ask me.
Sure.
So let's do
that's
barbecue.
Hard.
Barbecue, yeah, okay.
Because actually we are going to be doing barbecue.
You're going to go Q39, right?
Let's go.
So what I would do with barbecue is a really intense flavor, right? Very strong. So that's the other thing you want to do when you're looking at it. It sounds, on the surface, it's going to sound a bit complicated. Like, you're making me think too much about this, but it's not. So you also want to match intensities of the things you pair together.
Okay.
So barbecue has a lot of intense flavor. Yeah. It's really fatty. You got that smoke, all that stuff. Yeah. So a lot of beers are more on the delicate side. So something like Boulevard Light or even Space Camper, right? They're delicate. While they do have some flavor, that barbecue is going to overpower it. It's just going to take over everything. Yeah. So what I would recommend with barbecue, I would do like Tank 7 is a really good one, because Tank 7 has a lot of carbonation, so much carbonation. It actually has some bold flavors, relatively bold flavors. It's refreshing.
So they match.
So I think that the intensities would match there. Something like Bourbon Barrel Quad which is also a pretty intense beer, but that quad has some sweetness that's going to resonate with the sweetness in the sauce. Or if you get something spicy, that sweet and spicy are going to contrast a little bit. They're going to kind of like tamp it down. Barbecue, again, really fatty, right? So you keep eating barbecue, you're just pounding your mouth with like the fat, which is awesome. That's what you want, right?
Yes.
But then you need something to lift that. So both BBQ, Bourbon Barrel Quad, and Tank 7 have high carbonation, and they're going to do a really good job of kind of cleaning your palate. And then Tank 7 will leave you with like a fresh. it's also not going to be so strong. You don't want to overpower the food, so you don't want to have a beer that's like really tart or really funky or really stringent, really acidic, because then that will diminish the flavor of the barbecue. So for Tank 7, I would also say like Pale Ale is actually a really good beer with barbecue, I think, because again, the sweetness from the malt character is going to match the sweetness in the sauce, depending on what you get.
Right.
And then it also has, again, that carbonation, that alcohol. Those two things are going to work to kind of scrub your palate clean. Yeah.
Okay.
Man,
well, I'm going to be like, you guys got Tank 7?
Tank 7, and man,
I want to
be
eat this
good
brisket.
and full and good and buzz, man.
I want to eat this brisket, but Adam said I need a Tank 7.
Yeah. You're talking about these barrels, these barrel brews, man.
Yeah.
There's so many of them. There's so many. I don't know if you guys still have it available. You're talking about sweetness. I've seen one that's a carrot cake.
Yeah, so what carrot cake says on,
Carrot cake, and you got the churro one too?
The Churro Grande is out at the moment,
Let's go.
Is it?
So
have you had that one yet, Jay?
No.
Yeah, so Churro Grande is an imperial brown ale, so it's a relatively simple base beer, and then we aged it in whiskey barrels, and then the wizards who manage our program, they added in like some like cinnamon, right, and some vanilla to kind of, because you're already going to get the bready character from the brown ale, so it is like a boozy churro,
but it's stronger because it's still in them barrels.
Yep, so, it's like 12% ABV.
Oh man, so you're only giving like 8 ounces of those.
Yeah, here we do. Yeah,
right?
At home you do what you want. You fill up a pint glass.
Put on the show and I watch it, right?
Yep.
What? So you guys do, and this is, obviously we wanted to talk to you guys for a while. We started this year and a half ago, but the Leslie episode, right? You guys did the was it a monthly special?
No,
in fact
it's less frequent than that.
Okay.
And so it's what we call the Brewhouse 1 series. So our original, first of all, Jackie, thank you so much for the beer. I'm going to shout out to Jackie.
Jack.
That was very nice
Thanks,
of you.
Jack.
She saw my glass, and
she knows the deal, believe me.
So Brewhouse 1 is a smaller brew house. It's like a brewer's playground. And Greg Garrity gets to kind of like muck around in there. He gets ideas. But we use it as an avenue to connect with the community.
Okay.
So we do some beers that are maybe a little wild, maybe a little bit different, but we want to find partners in our community that we are passionate about, that we like. We did a beer with Slow Rise Donuts. Have you guys talked to them? You ought to talk to Slow Rise.
Okay.
Those two are amazing. They're very popular, like a pop-up donut shop. They started as a pop-up at the Lawrence Farmers Market, and then the line to get into the farmers market was so long that they couldn't keep up. So they started doing other pop-ups around the city. And we like donuts, and they like beer.
Is there a beer that would go good with a donut?
Any beer.
Any beer?
Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I should say any beer.
The churro.
Yes, the churro maybe. But I think it would depend on the kind of donut.
The dark beers seem like it would go good.
I think you're on it. So depending on the type of beer or type of donut, like what kind of donut are we talking about?
I mean,
right.
Cake donut.
Like an old fashioned.
Like a cake, old fashioned. Right. All right, let's start with old fashioned. I think you're right. A dark beer. We have a beer called Whiskey Barrel Stout, which I think already, for me, it's like a dark chocolate candy bar in a glass.
Okay.
I think if you think of like an old fashioned donut that's not covered in chocolate, and you have it with a Whiskey Barrel Stout, what it's going to do is it's going to create a flavor experience that you are eating a chocolate covered donut.
Right.
Okay.
Because you got that on your palate.
Yeah. And so, you Whiskey Barrel Stout's pretty sweet, so like might say like a sweet donut and a sweet beer might not go together. Right. But I would say like maybe we have a beer called Dry Stout that's on right now that is like a black coffee, kind of like there's a lot of coffee roast to it. That would also, it's kind of dry.
And
so
those are pretty popular right now too.
Oh man, that beer it's insane. Yeah.
That's insane. So you were talking though about
the Brewhouse 1 series.
Yeah, the Brewhouse 1 series.
Yeah,
I interrupted you. Sorry.
No, you're good. So the Brewhouse 1, we get together every year, like at the beginning of the year, and we map out. So we're like, and it's a room on the other side of this wall, and there's usually about a dozen of us, and we're like, who do we want to make a beer with? Who do we want to connect with? Like Powell Gardens, we did a beer with them. We really like them. Messner Bee Farms, we did a beer. We want to do beer with them. And then I think we had actually just been to Cafe Oyama. We were having coffee over here, and we're like, those folks are pretty rad. Yeah, I was like, and the world of coffee opens up a wide range of beers that we could potentially make. And so Greg was like, I'm just going to go talk to them.
Yeah.
And he did, and they were, so cool, and they were like, yeah, we would love to do this. And then we're like, what kind of beer should we make? What kind of beer? We originally, because it was in February, and we previously every year we used to do this beer called Chocolate Ale, and we didn't want to do Chocolate Ale again this year because we wanted to give it some time off. But we're like, this could take the place of Chocolate Ale.
Yeah.
And so I think they went in with that idea, and she was like, let's not do chocolate ale. Let's do like I think it was like a Mexican hot chocolate. That's what we were thinking. And then she turned us on to some other flavors that they had on their menu. And it was just kind of a match made in heaven. And then we had our brew day with them, and they got to help us make the beer. We threw in like 50 pounds of Abuelita chocolates and 50 pounds of piloncillo and like the chilies and the cloves and cinnamon.
Amazing.
And the beer turned out amazing.
It was incredible, man. I was here that night.
That was a wild night.
I came here for that night for that grand party, whatever the opening or whatever, the showcase
like a release beer,
whatever, right?
Release party. Yep.
Oh, it was nuts, man.
Record setting.
It was nuts.
Record setting
night.
Yeah, it was a record setting attendance. Yeah.
Listen,
Shout out Cafe Yama.
You get some Latinos and some alcohol together, it's a party.
Man, they had a DJ up here. They had all kinds of stuff going on, man. It was awesome.
That beer was stout too. It was I can't remember the ABV, but it was like definitely 12 plus. Yeah. And I remember that night. I don't know, I shouldn't admit this, but I had been here all day. And we had a couple beers with some other partners, and I was like, I'm just gonna stick around, because I wanted to be there, and so I was like, the Chocolate Ale had been tapped, and I'm like, I'll have one, and I had it real quick, and I was like, I'll have another one, and I had it real quick, and then like that night, they were like, Adam, why don't you get on the mic and like thank everybody for coming? And I was like, oh, I don't know, that's a good idea. I was like, so the whole time
he said it in Spanish.
I tried. Entiendo mucho, pero right. But yeah, no, it was great. It's like just like maintain. This is amazing. These people are awesome. Like this is a great crowd.
I have to agree, man. I think I had 4 of them.
Yeah, it sneaks up on
and
you.
I was like, man, let me go back to.
We wanted to put Cuidado on the label because it's like,
yeah. I mean, dude, listen, first of all, the Brewhouse 1 series, we've had several in that, that experience. I mean, shout out Leslie, man, Cafe Oyama. That was a great beer. Man, I'll have to say, man, like you guys being here in the community, man, like reaching out. You guys are OG business, man.
Yeah, man.
I mean, just like original microbrewery, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I can imagine the amount of breweries now. You said 60-something, right? In Kansas City alone.
There's something like 14,000 nationwide.
You guys are the example. You're the role model, Right. So just you guys digging back into the community and finding those small businesses to connect and collaborate with, man, so important, man. You talk about that?
It makes us really happy to be able to connect with the community in that way, to find like things that make us happy, and we want to, because we know we have a pretty big audience. Like on social media, we have a lot of followers. We have people connect with us every day, and so to do something like the Brewhouse 1 series collaboration with Cafe Oyama,
right?
It gives us an opportunity to use our microphone to point people to a local business that's doing amazing things right here in our community, that's a pillar of our community. Right. Learning the history of Cafe Oyama and their family, and how deeply rooted they are into the west side here. I mean, that's the kind of things that we love.
Right.
And then, like the Powell Gardens beer, I maybe mentioned that earlier, but that was they had a chokeberry. It's a berry that grows wild, and one of our brewers like, I just want to make a beer with it, and so we went to them, and they met their horticulturists and really got to like walk the grounds and kind of learn more about native plants to our area, like things that are like literally homegrown, right? And to be able to brew with them and to highlight a beautiful park that we hope that most people in Kansas City know of, but maybe people outside of Kansas City don't know of, and we like to find people that we can highlight and then show them support and love, and then make something really cool with them. And that's like Cafe Oyama, the Chocolate Ale was like this. It was a great project because we worked so closely with them. We have designers. We have in-house designers. All of our packaging, all of our labels, all of our posters, all of our videos are all done in-house by 3 people.
Oh, wow.
And so when we were talking with Leslie about what we wanted the label. What do you guys want the label to look like? We wanted them to have ownership, and so they worked directly with JD Arnett, who was our designer. And I think when you look at that label, you can see that we leaned heavily on them. Yeah. Like, we want inspiration from you. We want to know the story of Kapayama. We want to know the story of like how you guys got started, where have you been? And they've lived all over, and they kind of came back home. And so I think that shows on the label. And then just something as simple as like, that label is pretty uniform. So every Brewhouse 1 series has that same, it's pretty small. Like our designers have a small window to work in, but we want to make it unique. Like when we did the Good Vibes beer with, why am I blanking now? The juice, Ruby Jeans. We did a beer with Ruby Jeans. And we worked so closely, our designers worked closely with them. Like, what vibe do you want to capture on the label? Beyond just brewing a beer with them, we want you to be able to tell your story on this label, and we want to make a good beer. And I think with the Brewhouse 1 series, we were like, the label, it says, Mexican Chocolate Ale, and it's got all this great, like,
got some peppers in it, got the design.
And I was like, we're kind of like, we should be a little bit more on the nose. I know, like, the label always says Brewhouse 1 series. I was like, we need to change that to Cerveceria Uno series, or series Cerveceria Uno. I was like, because we need this to be fully like 360. Like, make this a collaboration.
Right. Well, and it feels more authentic too. That
totally.
way, right? Yeah. Like, hey man, we really put some thought into this because this is about you guys as much as it's about Boulevard. Yep. You know what I mean?
I love it. But you know what? We can probably do something with
we could.
How about we could? All right. We could collab and get
thinking, do y'all got like a 22% beer?
All right. So let me ask you a question. If we were going to make a beer, the three of us, if we were going to make a beer, what would your style of beer be? What would it be?
That's crazy because D-Rod loves Space Camper.
Well, that's why we get on so well.
I don't listen. I like Space Camper, but I like dark beer.
Dark beer, yeah.
I really do.
Well, I like. Look, let me just show this again. Right? Like I've been.
What does it say? I didn't see it. I like beer.
So, and I got this in Milwaukee. I went up to Milwaukee.
Great drinking town.
Yeah,
great drinking
years
town.
ago, and it was as fresh as it could be. Anyways, so I tell people when people ask me what do I drink.
Yep.
All my friends out there, even JL here, he knows. Man, it's cold. Whatever's cold.
Whatever's cold.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I mean, I don't have a favorite. I just like it cold, man. So, if we do something like this, it could be dark.
Okay. I think it could be a combination of the two. And I don't know.
Could be a dark IPA?
Like a red?
We would rely on your experience to tell us what what kind of picture.
Maybe like a red, right? A red's in between.
Nice. Yeah.
A red's in between of like a pilsner or a lager.
Absolutely,
and a dark, right?
So that's the thing with, like, when we make beer is 4 ingredients, right? It's just that simple. It's malted barley or grains, hops, yeast, and water. That's it. We manipulate those 4 ingredients to create 35 different flavors that we have right now. With a beer like, so Space Camper uses a pretty simple malted barley. It's not roasted at all.
Okay.
With Pale Ale, so if you just look at the color, right?
Yes.
So that's a little bit darker than Space Camper. That has a malted barley that has been either caramelized or roasted, which gives it a little bit of color. Now, there's not a lot in it, but just enough to add color.
I was wondering how the colors change.
That caramel.
So barley, it's barley or grains is what's going to drive color. Some of the flavor comes from the barley as well, but most of it's color and body.
Okay.
And then if you take something like a stout, right? Like a stout, which is black, that's black. So that has barley that's been, think about like coffee beans, how you roast coffee beans, you get different roasts. So that barley has been roasted so much that it is black. And then when we put it in the boil, and it's not, again, a little goes a long way. That produces that black color, which will kind of take over the whole beer. So to make a red beer, you're basically doing like you are with a pale ale. You're just using malted barley that's going to give you, that has a certain degree of roast to it that will give it that color. So I think red ale is a good place to start. But I think for us, red might be just we need something else.
Yeah.
What else?
Let's talk, man.
All right, let me ask you. So what if we took a red ale and we aged it in a barrel?
Yes.
What spirit do you have in mind? Like what's a spirit barrel that you would put it in?
Well, whiskey. Can we do one with
could
tequila?
do whiskey.
Can we do one with tequila?
Absolutely. We could do some with tequila. I would say it would need to be a little bit of a blend. If you're going to have a red ale, I would do a blend of whiskey, and then maybe like some of it would be whiskey, because that whiskey is going to resonate with the flavors of the red ale. But to have that additional element of tequila, you could take like maybe 75% in whiskey barrels and 25% tequila, because tequila has a pretty distinct flavor. I mean, it would overpower everything, but you want to have a hint of that.
What whiskey would you recommend?
I would have to, let's keep it KC.
Okay.
Right? Let's keep it KC.
Rieger?
Jay Rieger or Holiday. They're a great partner of ours as well.
Okay.
We keep it KC.
Let's go.
And age it in them. And then we don't really have any tequila producers. Well, we do. We have like Mule, right?
Yeah.
We could take some Mule, some agave barrels.
Yeah.
And maybe just a touch of that. And then let's see, we need something else in there maybe.
Can you make it happen?
Oh, wow. See, yeah, I'm going to pull some strings.
Yeah, man. I think it's a great idea. Okay, so back on that deal, okay, we're talking about the community and how you collab with all these other people. Now, is there a process that goes with picking who you might want to, or is that something that, like, say, Joe's Burger Joint or something down the street? He's like, he wants. He's like, man, I think I want to like to try and get in there. Is there like an application process, or is it just more like we know who you are, let's do some work?
It's all internal, and a lot of times we don't know. Like we were patrons. Of Cafe Yama, but we didn't know them.
Right,
I bought my fair share of donuts from Slow Rise, but I didn't know them.
Right.
Usually it's like we'll have a room and people will throw out some ideas, and then we, I hate to say it, but we sometimes we have to vet them. We need to make sure that they're
a good fit.
That they're a good fit. That they're maybe their ideals line up with ours. That their mission lines up with ours. We just want to make sure that it is the right avenue. That's the right fit.
Right.
And so that's vetted through a group of people internally. And the list of people that we want to collaborate with is very long, and our ability to make beer is restricted. So
especially now with so much, come on. KC, we're blown up, man. There's so many places and so many great things going on.
Yeah, and I would say we get approached by a lot of like retailers, people that sell our beer that want to make a collaboration with us.
Okay.
And that's really hard because, let's take barbecue, for example, right?
Yeah.
If like a barbecue restaurant came to us and said, we want to make a beer with you, and we did that, then we're alienating the 300 other barbecue places in Kansas City. Right. So we try to be really, and like I would say maybe an exception would be like, let's say there's a barbecue restaurant and they're like, we started an amazing charity and we're looking to raise, like awareness of this incredible organization. Okay. Then we might go to the organization rather than the retailer.
Okay.
But we try to, not pick on or not like, highlight or isolate one retailer.
Well, if it helps, man, we're the only mobile podcast in Kansas City, so let's throw that out there.
We could clip your mics to the brew house. We could record while we brew.
Yeah,
that'd be dope. That'd be real dope. I'm curious, man. Like whenever you travel, man, and you go out of state. Yeah. Okay. Now let's say a reasonable distance from the Midwest, right? What is the feedback you get about Boulevard Brewing Company, man? The beer, the flavor, man. Like, what do you hear from people out of town? So
that's a great question, because here in Kansas City, right? Like if I go, if I go to a beer dinner in Kansas City, everyone that's there is like, I love Boulevard. I've been drinking Boulevard for 20 years. Yeah. I've been to the brewery. I've been on a tour. I'm a fan. Yeah. You guys are KC.
Right.
And then when I go to like Milwaukee, right, and do the same thing in Milwaukee, the Boulevard name doesn't mean
nothing.
It doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean got everything there.
Exactly. Yeah. So then it's really about the quality of whatever beer I'm talking about.
Right.
So the further you get away from KC, the Boulevard name carries less weight, and the beer itself is highlighted. Like, for example, I remember a couple years ago, I was in California one week and I did a beer fest, and we took like 4 or 5 different beers that were all amazing. But at the beer fest, every single person that came up to the table was like, you guys make Tank 7, right? And I'm like, we do. And they're like, well, where is it? I'm like, we didn't bring that because you can buy it here, right? And they're like, man, you should have brought some Tank 7. This stuff is amazing. Tank 7 is great. And I'm like, well, you like Tank 7, try these beers.
Right.
And then like I flew from there to Washington, D.C. and did a beer event in D.C. So West Coast to East Coast. And I'm at this almost we brought the same beers to this thing called Savor, and it no longer exists, but it was in the beer community. Savor was like the ultimate place to go and try new beers from really well-established breweries. They had food and stuff. But every time, like, someone would come up and they'd be like, Boulevard, Kansas City? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you guys make Tank 7, right? I'm like, we do. And they're like, where is it? Tank 7 is my favorite beer. Yeah. So then it becomes like the further you get from KC, people start, it gets narrowed down to a specific beer that people like. Right. And then you have to kind of talk about like, well, we have more beer than just your favorite from us. Yeah. And like, let's introduce you to some other flavors that we do. Yeah. But the closer, like, you go to like Des Moines or Omaha or Springfield or
is there a city or state you would say like, man, they really love Boulevard Brewing?
Like far away?
Can I blow your mind real quick?
Blow my mind.
Yeah. Puerto Rico.
No way.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Puerto Rico is, we have an amazing wholesaler there. They're called Bayas de Hermanos. They are awesome. And they embraced us pretty early on. Yeah. And they went hard with distribution in Puerto Rico. So like San Juan, you could find, we made a beer called The Calling for a while. And there was no bar in San Juan that you could go to that didn't have The Calling on. Okay. And then, so they were like, oh, The Calling's great. And then, like now we're familiar with this brand, with this brewery. We're willing to give other beers a try. Gotcha. And so we tried a couple different beers there to see what fit, what didn't. Right. There's not a lot of barrel-aged beer in Puerto Rico. So our barrel-aged beer does really well there. We do a beer called the 6 Class that travels really well, and that does great there. And I remember I went to Puerto Rico a couple years ago, and it was we had just stopped making The Calling because other breweries locally were doing IPAs that were great, and The Calling kind of like diminished here. And like we loved it; that beer is amazing, but it just wasn't standing up on the shelf like it should. So we had to discontinue it, which is always sad. If you're listening right now and we no longer make your favorite beer, from the bottom of my heart, I apologize. It was not an easy choice to make. It was not personal. We still love you. Hopefully, there's something else in our portfolio that you can find that you will like.
I'm sure.
When we discontinued The Calling, our wholesaler was like, "That's a lot of volume for us." Like they were selling more Calling in Puerto Rico than we were in Kansas City.
Wow.
And that's doesn't happen. That never happens. So they were like, we need to go to Puerto Rico and we need to do this full market blitz. So I went with a brewer and one of our sales guys, and then we were with our wholesaler there, and his name is Joey. He's awesome. And he took us around basically the whole island. Like we were there for 5 days. It was really rough. Yes, it was terrible. But we were going to every grocery store, every convenience store, every bar, everywhere. And every time we'd walk in, they'd be like, "Hey, Boulevard, where's The Calling?" They're like mad. They're like, "What happened to The Calling?" I'm like, "I'm really sorry. I know. I'm sorry. I've got a bunch of other stuff I want to talk to you about. Space Camper was one of them." And so this happened like the whole week, right? And then the last day, we felt like we got beat up the whole time we were there. The last day, we got an Uber from San Juan to the airport. And I get in, and it's me and my brewer and our sales guy who lives in Florida. And the Uber driver was like, "Oh, you guys heading out?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Were you here for work or here for pleasure? We're on vacation." We're like, "Nah, we're here for work." And they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" And like, "Oh, we work for a brewery in Kansas City." And the guy was like, "Oh, yeah, I probably don't know it." And I was like, "It's called Boulevard." And the guy was like, he's just driving, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know it." And the three of us kind of looked at each other and we're like, we used to make The Calling. Oh, The Calling! I love The Calling. I can't find it anymore. Where'd The Calling go? Man. And I was like, "Oh man, brother, we'll make sure you get some beer. Thank you for being a fan. That was really cool." But to this day, they're outside of Kansas City and outside of like the Midwest. Texas is a really good market for us. They do a lot of beer. California is a great market for us. We on the East Coast, up and down the East Coast, we do really well with certain beers. It changes from state to state.
You even said it's 47 states?
49 states.
49 states now. What's the last one?
Alabama. Alabama. Yeah, Alabama's the one state where we don't distribute. Yeah,
man, I got people in Alabama, man. I'll make a call.
Yeah,
man.
tell them to hit us up on social.
Call, man. I got people in Alabama.
I just saw today. We just announced Boulou is coming back. Are you guys familiar with Boulou?
Yeah, Tech Nine.
Yeah, so Boulou is coming back, and on social media, when we announced that, like, hey, Boulou's going to hit shelves next week, our social media just started getting hit from people all across the country. Like, can I find it in Texas? Can I find it in Nashville? Can I find it here? Can I find it here? And Alabama, there was a handful of people like, I'm in Birmingham. Can I get Boulou? And I'm like, oh man, I'm so sorry. No, it's not coming in.
Does some of it have to do with the fact? Doesn't Alabama still have like some dry counties and stuff?
It's most of that is because of liquor laws that are in place that make it challenging for us to get our beer there.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Yep. What about, man, like big events, right? Like, let's talk about one major event coming to Kansas City.
We said Tech 9. We can't not talk about it. I mean,
that's a huge event, man. Let's talk about Tech 9. What is it called again?
Boulevard. Oh, Boulou is the beer we do with
them. Boulou, right? Yeah. So describe that, man, for people who don't know. What can they expect when they buy Boulou?
So if you're a fan of Tech 9, you're probably familiar with a song called Caribou Lou, which is Malibu rum, 151, and pineapple juice, right?
So classic for that, by the way.
Oh, yeah. So several years ago, Strange Music came to us, and they're like, we really would love to collaborate with you. Tech wants to collaborate. And we're like, well, you have the recipe for a cocktail in your song. Maybe we could recreate that with beer, like obviously we can't use spirits, but we can recreate the flavor experience. And
Did he say, that's not really a beer though?
No, he was all in. He was for it. And especially when we went through like the development of that beer, it was a lot of trial and error. Like, does this have enough coconut? Does this have enough pineapple? Does this have, is it too much? Whatever. Right. And he had his, he was here all the time, trying it. And we landed on a recipe that he was like, that's it. He was like, I will drink that. That's something I would drink. So Boulou was born. And it also coincided with, I think it was 2018 was the year that he headlined Boulevardia. Was, it was the greatest night. Honestly, I cannot wait for this year for Boulevardia, because Tech 9, when he headlined Boulevardia back in 2018, it was one of my favorite Kansas City moments, because there was something like 20,000 people at the stage, and every single one of them were like embracing Kansas City. Like, this is a Kansas City moment. We're in the West Bottoms. We ran out of Boulou that night before he even took the stage. So you had people out there drinking wheat beer and KC Pills at the time, Tank 7. And then he took the stage, and it was just a great Kansas. The weather was perfect, whether you were a fan of Tank 7 or of Tech 9 or not, if you had never heard any of the songs,
on that night.
You did. And that's what we heard. Like, people were like, I didn't know what to expect, but just the energy. So to have him headline Boulevardia this year, I'm really excited for that, because
that back, man.
At Crown Center, you're going to be watching the stage, and over the stage you see the skyline of Kansas City, and I'm going to get chills when, even if it's like Red Kingdom, right? Like, every single person out there is going to be chanting along, right?
Yes, sir.
And so, it's. We're all going to be out there, right? It's going to be outrageous. So,
let me just add, that Boulou's pretty good, man.
It's very good.
That Boulou's. Have you had it, Jim?
I probably have.
Man, I know you've had it.
I'm sure I have.
You had it.
I'll send some to you.
Hey, I appreciate that.
That Boulou's fire.
So, Boulevardia, man.
Yep.
This is not. How old is Boulevardia?
This is the 10th Boulevardia.
I was going to say this has got to be around 10 years old, man. So, it's still young. It's growing, right?
Yep.
And you guys are. It's just getting bigger and bigger. I'm sure COVID put a halt to
it did.
A couple things, right?
We had 2 years.
But now here we are, right? Yep. 5 years beyond that. Let's talk about the concept around Boulevardia, because you were here, man.
Yep.
Like, why was this an important event for you guys to put together?
So at the time, we had a couple of people in our marketing team who were big fans of Bonnaroo, which is a big music festival in Manchester, Tennessee,
right.
in the middle of nowhere, right? And so they're like, we want to kind of take this festival experience and bring it to Kansas City. We want to do a festival that is a celebration of Kansas City. I also have some the idea of having a music festival for, at the time it was 3 days. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
But Sunday is Father's Day. So for a few years we tried to do it on Father's Day, but the attendance wasn't that great because it's Father's Day. So it was challenging. So we made the decision we pivoted to just Friday and Saturday. But we wanted to bring a music festival to Kansas City. And we were like, well, we're also, we're a brewery. We make beer.
Right.
So what if we took like a premier beer fest and invited breweries from across the country to come to this festival, have a beer fest in the middle of a music fest? And it's wild to me, like it's called Taps and Tastes, is the beer fest portion inside Boulevardia. Right. And I think the tickets to Taps and Tastes is like $90, which on the surface is like, whoa, $90, that's a lot. But if you think about this, a GA ticket to Boulevardia is like $40 after taxes and everything. So that's just a ticket to get you in the door.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then you're going to be there all day. You're probably going to eat. You're probably going to drink. And then you're going to hang out and watch the live music. With Taps and Tastes, though, so it's $90. You get access to the festival. But for 4 hours, you get to come in and try as much of the best, what we consider some of the best beer in the world, because we've invited, we're deliberate.
Peers around the country.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for 4 hours, you get as much beer as you want. We also have like 10 to 12 different restaurants that serve food for the entire time. Right. So you get beer, you get food, air conditioned. It's summertime in Kansas City. It's pretty hot. And then we also have live music, like Kemet Coleman. He plays every year with the band that plays. Right. So for 4 hours, if you decide to stay that long, you get to have your beer, you get to have food, you get to have some music, you get to. Last year we had Hanson, the band Hanson. Mm-hmm. They have a brewery in Oklahoma City, and their brewery was there, so they came and they were there the whole time pouring their beer. So we had fans of that band that were able to interact with them in a really unique way. Right. So we're doing that same thing this year. Tech Nine is going to be there for the first hour, and he's going to be pouring Bulu for anybody that walks up and says, "Can I get a Bulu?" And they have an opportunity to connect with him. Like, here's a beer we made with him, and you get to, you're going to see him play on stage in like 4 or 5 hours. So it's a really cool, unique, personal experience. And then when Taps and Tastes is over, you get to walk out in the fest and see the last like 4 or 5 headliners. So you're getting that festival experience.
Who are they? Can you name them?
I'd have to look it up. I can't remember the order, but it's all pretty local this year. This year is all for our 10th anniversary. We wanted it to be a celebration because KC has so much to offer.
Man,
a lot, man.
And there's a lot out there that people aren't aware of. This Freedom Affair is one of them. Greeting Committee. And then Tech Nine, I think that's the order. So,
have you been to Boulevardia, D-Bro?
Again, I have to admit, man, I have not. For those people that have not, including myself. How can they go about getting tickets? What is that? You got to separate. They're a whole different entity that takes care of that.
So Boulevardia, while like 4/5 of the name is our name, Boulevardia is a separate organization. So if you go to like boulevardia.com, you can see the lineup. You can see the schedule. You can buy they have a variety of different ticket packages. I will say, like, I might be speaking out of turn, but I know that oftentimes they have like flash sales where they'll be like 2 for 1, but today only. So if you follow them on social media, it's Boulevardia, like at Boulevardia on Instagram. If you follow them, you will see every now and then they're like, we're running a special on GA tickets, we're running a special on Taps and Taste tickets, and that's your moment to strike, right?
Right.
But that's where all the information is.
All right, we're talking a little bit about events and things going on. The biggest one that's going on is next year, man. World Cup,
my gosh.
bro.
Yes, sir.
World Cup.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your preparation, man. We got Germans coming, man, which, come on, man. They're going to be crazy insane, right?
Better get the mugs bigger.
Man, you got to get them Steins, man. You got to get them Steins, man. What we got going on?
An amazing opportunity to be on the world scene. Like, the whole world is going to be looking at Kansas City.
Come on, man.
And I cannot wait. Yeah, I mean, we have things in preparation. We don't have a partnership with FIFA, which makes it challenging, right? It's like with the Chiefs. Like, every single person that works here is a diehard Chiefs fan. But the Chiefs are tied up with another brewery. So it's challenging for us to work with them. We find other ways. We have a partnership with Creed Humphrey. He's our brand ambassador. Creed is, he's an amazing dude.
Yeah.
That guy owns. He is the
Would
nicest.
Would he be good on a podcast, Adam?
I think he would. I think he would.
Creed, come on, man.
He is Creed is great.
Nice.
Creed is good. We work with him pretty closely, and that helps us connect with our football fans, with our like Kansas City football fans.
Right.
With the Royals, we have a partnership with the Royals. Our current brand ambassador is Vinny Pasquantino.
And Pasquatch.
That Pasquatch, that dude is awesome.
Yes,
he is great. And then with Kansas City Current, we have a good presence in the stadium. We have a good partnership with CPKC, but we also we're so supportive of that organization and so happy to be in that stadium. When Lola Labonta, as it turns out, is a massive Tank 7 and Space Camper fan. She and Roger are here. You could see their house from here actually. They're in the beer hall all the time.
For real?
And because they're just
they're
cool.
Close.
They embrace Kansas City.
Yeah.
I mean, Roger's been here for a hot minute.
Yeah.
But they're here all the time. Roger was here for the Cafe Oyama launch party. They're great. So we formed a partnership with Lo Labonta. We do some fun stuff with her. So I'm really I wonder if there's an international player that's a big fan of beer that we can maybe for a short time bring them here, introduce them to our beer, and then kind of create a connection.
I couldn't imagine, Adam. I couldn't imagine there's a team in the World Cup that is like, yeah, we don't like beer.
We don't like beer.
Yeah, man, come on. These dudes, they play at the highest levels, man.
Well, look, man, even, so I wrote down, not to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
But, we talked about the 49 states, brother, right?
Yep.
That we got on here. Alabama, come on, get on board. But let's go through these countries, man, and I wrote them down, right?
Yep.
We got Belgium, Brazil. Come on, Brazil. They're 5-time champions, man.
Yep.
And they're coming, right? Well, they're fans, bro. Fans. You supply Brazil, Canada, China, Finland, France, Germany.
Wow.
Right. The Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, and the United Kingdom, man.
Yep.
Those are the countries that.
Man, you know what that is, Adam. You know what that is, D-Rod.
Salud.
That's
man.
a salute, man.
Salute
That's
to
a
you
salute,
guys,
man.
Speaking of Brazil, last year I was turned on to a TV show that's on, I can't remember if it's HBO or Netflix, but it's called Los Spookies. Are you familiar? You guys familiar with Los Spookies?
No, I'm not.
You should put it on your radar.
Okay.
It's a show. It's comedy. It's a half-hour comedy show about a group of people that live in California.
Oh, okay.
But it wasn't filmed in California. It was filmed in Brazil. And it's very Latin driven, right?
Right.
And so they like the places that they go hang out are meant to be Latino inspired, right?
Sure.
So we were watching one night, and there's a bar scene, and they're at this bar, and I'm just I'm watching, and it's hilarious. It's very good.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking, they're at this bar, and in the background is a Boulevard single wide 10-tacker, a sign. And I was like, hey, single wide represent. So I reach out to our LA rep and I'm like, hey, I don't know who did this or how this got on the show, but I just want to let you know. And they're like, well, actually, that was filmed at a bar, in Brazil. So that was a bar in Brazil that has a single wide tap, a sign. At their bar, so they have Boulevard there. Yeah,
that's awesome, man.
It was really cool.
I thought you were going to say it was the name of what was the beer in Puerto Rico called?
The Calling. Oh gosh, yeah, I get PTSD from that. Yeah.
Dang, man,
I need a nation of Brazilians just yelling at me in Portuguese about.
Well, listen, man. Keep us in mind, man. We can talk offline about this. If you guys do events, you need somebody. We do pop-ups, man. We'd love to come and out and engage people in Kansas City and engage the audience, man.
Absolutely.
We do stuff like that for the community, man. We always like to have fun. I got to ask this, man. Is there a town, a city in the United States that you would say, listen, we're great. If you are a true beer fanatic, you love beer.
Oh yeah.
Go to this city.
Sure.
They produce.
Yep.
What would you say?
I would say,
or maybe cities.
No. My gut. Yeah, there are plenty of cities that I could tell you go there. The beer is phenomenal. It's a good scene. But my gut says Asheville, North Carolina.
Asheville, North Carolina.
It's pretty small. It's rural but super progressive. They've got a bunch of breweries. and I would say that they're all pretty spectacular.
Okay.
They're doing some amazing things. And then you have if you're in Asheville, you have access to other breweries that are in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia that are also available there.
Right.
But if you had 2 weeks and all you wanted to do was visit breweries and drink great beer, you could fill that entire time just in Asheville alone.
Wow.
Asheville, Portland.
Portland. Yeah,
Portland's a great one. San Diego, a lot of great beer. New York City. I mean, New York City's got like everything, right? I mean, it's some good breweries there as well. But that's the thing now. It's a lot like social media, right? Like social media makes information so accessible.
Yeah.
Correct.
Now that craft beer saw a real renaissance in the late 2000s, and now there's something like 14,000 breweries.
Yeah.
There is going to be stellar beer wherever you are.
There's going to be a bunch of hidden gems, man.
There's going to be totally.
Bunch of hidden gems.
But like, it's like yes, you're right. There's a lot. In fact, I will say this, D-Rod. When I go places, cities, and I visit, I always now ask for like
the local.
A local, yeah.
Correct.
What's the local? And they're like, well, what do you like?
Yeah.
Do you like IPA? Do you like that? And I'm like, dark. That's why I'm like dark. That's what I want the dark one. I'll drink the light one, but I want the dark one. Let me try that. And you start getting recommendations, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I was just thinking like, man, here in Kansas City, to your point, like you guys do tours here and everything, and D-Rod was talking about that. But man, there's like tours now. People will take you to brewery tours.
Oh yeah,
totally. They got buses.
Yeah,
they got the bus to go to brewery tours. You know.
Oh yeah,
they bring them here. I'm assuming
we have one in KC. Yeah.
Nice,
they sure
man.
do. They drop you off and they schedule their loop of or wherever they do. They they call ahead and say like we want to schedule.
We got
this
20
group.
people coming.
Yep, for this time.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. Oh, go ahead, D-Rod.
No, because you brought up the IPAs, man, and IPAs kind of been, I would say, maybe the last 10 years also, right?
Yeah.
They kind of been solid.
So IPAs currently nationwide is the number one beer category.
Really?
It's the number one category. That is when we talk about craft beer, right? So light beer is the biggest, right? That has the most volume. But in craft beer, IPA dominates, like that's the biggest category.
Yeah.
And in Kansas City, we're under indexed for IPA. So on the East Coast and West Coast, it's like 60% of the, and because IPA is not just a singular flavor.
Right.
There are hundreds of hop varieties that can produce different flavors.
Yeah.
So the spectrum of IPAs is pretty wide.
Right.
I mean, you can get an IPA that's blisteringly bitter, or you can get something that's like it's just a whisper of hops, but it puts it in that IPA category. Or you can have different styles, like like a double IPA or triple IPA or a cold IPA or a brewed IPA, or like a juicy IPA or
there's so many.
There's so many. So that alone helps elevate the category. But in the Midwest, we are under indexed.
Right.
It's only like 25% of the share of beer. So if you're in the Midwest and you're a brewery, you ought to think about including a couple IPAs because there's room for growth. And that's why, so Space Camper is I think currently it's our number one volume beer. We've been making Space Camper since 2019. And it's one of the few beers that every year has double-digit growth over the year before, continues to grow. It is, and that's why we make so many of them now, because it also IPAs give us an opportunity to explore flavors, and then Space Camper as a brand is just so fun that it gives us an opportunity.
You got to tell us the backstory on Space Camper.
It's so good, dude. So I don't know if you guys are familiar, but every March at Bartle Hall, there's an event called Planet Comic-Con.
Yes.
So Planet Comic-Con. So I am a massive nerd, by the way. My entire
anime and everything?
I try. I dabble. I feel like we went to Planet Anime one year, and I was like, yeah, I know anime. And I went there. I was like, oh man, I don't know anime. Like I am such a noob. And I'm asking people like, what should I be watching? But my entire arm is covered with like comic book characters from a lot of Kirby. So for years I was dying like, can we do something at Planet? And so in 2019 they were like, it was March of 2019. They were like, we have this booth space that's vacant, would you guys want to come and maybe sample beer to our convention goers? Okay. So we're like, sure, we'll do that. So we went and we said it was like a 10 by 10 pop-up tent, you know, like nothing, and a table and like a keg of beer and a cold plate to pour it and a bunch of cups. That was it. That's all we had. But it was the beer we were pouring that day was Jam Band, which is like a fruit forward beer, not bitter, not whatever.
Yeah.
So we sampled Jam Band, and the first day we ran out of beer, and me and a guy named Davey and a guy named Adam Roberts, who owns Screenland, who honestly you guys should talk to. That dude's great. Adam drove us to the brewery. We took kegs of beer out of the cooler here, highly illegal. I shouldn't be admitting this. That is not legal. But we wanted to sample beer for the rest of the weekend. So we doubled up the beer, we drove the kegs back up the hill, and then sampled for the rest of the weekend. So Monday morning, I'm in this meeting with our marketing team and our sales team and production, and I was just there to observe.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I think maybe we're missing an opportunity here. Mm-hmm. I was like, Planet Comic-Con kicked our butts this weekend. Like, I'm using this term lovingly because I am one. I was like, turns out nerds love beer, right?
Yes.
And I was like, we ought to consider a beer that targets, or is approachable and that it is branded to that, to that crowd.
The
Visually, yeah. So at the time, we had a beer on the test bar, and it was our brewmaster at the time had challenged our brewers to explore a variety of hops. Like every couple weeks, we're going to have a new beer featuring a new hop.
Okay.
Just to play around with it. And so at the time, we had a beer on tap at the test bar called Test El Dorado IPA. El Dorado is the hop variety, like the hop that's grown.
Okay.
That variety was called El Dorado.
Right.
And it provides a lot of like tropical fruit flavor to it, like tropical fruit flavor and aroma, a lot of citrus. And it was the #1 seller for that month.
Okay.
So we're like, okay, we've got an amazing beer that people seemingly love.
Yeah, they love, yeah.
One of our designers had been kind of playing around with this like Silver Age comic book cover style like logo.
Yeah.
But didn't have anything for it. So we were like, well, let's take this beer and this label, make it together. And so Space Camper was born. So Space Camper launched in late 2019. And it was kind of inspired by the illustrations and the cosplay and the pageantry and the creativity of Planet Comic-Con. Yeah. And so it was born, and it blew up. Yeah. Like Space Camper, because it's so approachable, right? Like it's not aggressively bitter on the backside, not super bitter, super drinkable. For an IPA. It's 5.9% ABV too, so it hits that great. Like you can have a couple of them. It's not too high, it's not too low. It was just kind of that magic number. And so it was born. But we did so well and Planet was so happy with our partnership that in 2019. So in 2020, it was just prior to COVID, we activated in a much, much bigger way. We brought more beer. We had a bigger section. It was fully developed and fully branded. And I mean, we had a line the entire time, and we were pouring Space Camper, and the brand really resonated with the people there. A lot of people were like, I don't like IPAs. I'm like, okay, we'll try this. And I'm like, well, this isn't too bad. I'm like, well, it's because it's a Midwest IPA. It's sensible. And then COVID hit, and we're like, well, that beer's done. We thought that like COVID was going to kill it, but then we saw that it did really well at like grocery stores and liquor stores, even though all the bars were shut down. That's the thing too, is like whenever we make a new beer, usually it's the bars where it's on tap because it's a lower investment, right? Like it's a lot cheaper to buy a pint of beer than it is to buy a 6-pack, right? And then you can try it and be like, oh, I like this. Maybe I'll go buy it. And that's how people discover new beers is through bars and restaurants and events and stuff like that. So we didn't have that anymore. But the brand continued to grow and still to this day continues to grow. So we have Space Camper Cosmic IPA, which is what we're drinking. And then we started, our designers were like, oh, you like that character? I got 100 of them, right? Like I can, like we can. So then the brewers are like, this gives us an opportunity to play around with other hops. Then in, I think it was 2021 of January 2021, we did what was called Giga Hop, which was a IPA that used hops from both the northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere.
Yeah.
So we call it like a dual hemisphere IPA, and it was a limited release, but it did really well. So then later in the year we did another limited, and later in the year we did another limited with a different character on each one.
Right.
And so now the Space Camper universe is continuing to grow. And so we do the mix pack, which we do year round. Actually, this is kind of funny too. So whenever we come up with a new beer, or the brewers are like, I have an idea for a beer. Yeah. And if it works really well, then they're like, we're going to produce this for the market. Mm-hmm. Then our designers have to design to what the brewers made. Mm-hmm. And it presents a lot of challenges because sometimes maybe the designers didn't have a chance to try the beer when it was on the test bar. Right. And they're like just going off of notes from our brewers, and they come up with this amazing design. And then last year, our innovation brewer, Greg, was like, what if we flip the script? He's like, I want the designers to design something, give it to us, and we will brew to it. So now that's what our Cosmic Mix Pack is. So our Cosmic Mix Pack is Space Camper, and then there's 2 other beers in it. But those beers, the brewers brewed a beer to fit the design rather than designing a beer or a label to fit the beer.
Right.
And it's been it's a fun. Like our designers love it because then they have free reign. There's no guardrails, right?
Right.
They can do whatever they want, and the brewers are like, okay, I guess we'll. What the hell are we gonna make? We gotta make something.
So it was originally called El Dorado.
El Dorado, Test El Dorado. So they all like in that year we had a dozen different hop varieties. So you'd see like Test Azaka or Test, Citra or Test Mandarino or something. And El Dorado just
but then like Space Camper, like the name. I mean, like that's an epic name, man.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's
so and then a little inside baseball. So our like the Space Camper character, like Space Camper is her superhero name, right?
Okay.
But her alter ego is L-E-L-L-E Dorado. El Dorado. So her, that's her Peter Parker, Clark Kent kind of name. It's like inspired by her hop variety. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, we're a bunch of nerds in the marketing department, right? We just come up with some nerdy shit all the time.
I mean, just the fact. I mean, like, where else can you read that or find that? I mean, you probably can. I don't know.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about, man, the talent. Yes. The talent you're talking about having the artists draw that to create the Brewsters, and then having them flipping the script, brother, and then they're like, okay, well, we're gonna create it, and you guys got to make the beer too.
Isn't that fun?
Oh man, I mean the talent.
Yeah.
The talent that it takes for your team to do that, man. Yeah. Shout out to them.
And a lot of trust, right? So the designers have trust that the brewers are going to do something. Yeah. And the brewers have trust that the designers aren't going to give them like an 8-legged frog and be like, do something with it. They're like, oh, shit, I have no idea what to brew for this.
Be careful what you wish for because they might do that.
The illustrators that are designers, they know. Like when they put something together, they understand that someone has to create something off of it. Yeah. So they give them themes to work off of. Yeah. There was the last one. It was very look kind of like a dry environment. And so like, what if we do a dry IPA to kind of go to match the design? So I would say it's like low hanging fruit or softballs, but they try not to make it. Oh, Crater Raider. So that was one that was in the current mix pack. And our designer Chella, she was like, I want to do this like really rad, like kind of Westworld, like Fallout, kind of atomic cowgirl looking thing. And so that's what she did. And our Greg was like, this is giving me like old school beer vibes, like an amber ale. So they did like a hoppy amber ale, and it matched it, and it was beautiful. It's a beautiful beer, beautiful design. Yeah, we have some talented folks that work here.
I was gonna say, D-Rod, we talked to an artist who did an internship for Boulevard Brewing. Yeah. Shout out our boy Dink, man. Yeah. Dink, he shared that in his story in his episode.
Oh, nice.
He was like, man, I started off doing like an internship right out of the Kansas City Art Institute.
Yep.
He came here and did like an internship. He says like, man, I loved it, man. It was awesome.
Oh, good.
That type of thing.
And we also have Moya, man.
Juan Moya.
Moya.
He did the Dia de los Muertos.
Yep.
Yeah. That was dope, man, because that was we actually pulled out the cans, and that was a collaboration that you guys did.
Yep.
That was a collaboration that you guys did with Juan Moya, man, born and raised right here on the west side. That's awesome, man.
Was that the Matty Rhodes collab?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Matty Rhodes collab, Man, that's awesome, man. I mean, I love hearing the stories about this stuff because to me now, every time I drink a Space Camper or a Tank 7, I'm gonna be telling people like, you want to hear a story about this? You know, and I'm gonna try to remember it. You know what I mean? I will say, man, I did not know. D-Rod's being completely honest with you. Let me be completely honest with you for a second. I did not know Boulevard made Quirk.
Oh, really?
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Place. And there's like 4 different types.
There's
a whip. There's a
so we have the whip pack. Many. The Berry Botanical is our bestseller. Really? There's the whip pack, the Fountain Fizz, which is like old school, like fountain soda inspired. We have the tea pack, which is made with like green tea. So there's teas, and then we have what we call our splash of citrus, which are all citrus driven flavors. And then we have the limited, like Rocket Pop is out right now. Okay. And that was Boulevard's single biggest release, beer or anything. When Rocket Pop came out, those orders were insane. That was one of the biggest months for Quirk. Quirk was driven so. You know, we got late. We were late to the seltzer game. So the seltzers really started exploding around 2018, 2019. Yeah. And we're like, the beer was kind of getting its lunch eaten by people who were moving to seltzers. Right. And we didn't want to just like crank out a seltzer and put it out there. So we started.
Real quick, what's the difference between a beer and a seltzer? For people who listen to I have no idea.
When we talk about beer is malted barley. Malt, and we use malted barley because barley has what they call diastatic power. That just means that when we expose barley seeds, it's just a grass seed, to like hot water, what happens is there's an enzymatic exchange. There's an enzyme that will convert the sugar inside or the starches in the seed to sugar. Okay. And then we use that sugar from the barley, ferment it to make beer. Okay. So the yeast eats the sugar we've created from the barley. Okay. With a seltzer, you're skipping the barley. There's no grains. It's what we call a fermented sugar beverage. So we're taking sugar and then fermenting that with a different yeast strain. It took us a long time to develop a clean seltzer. Like there's no aftertaste, nothing like lays on the back of your tongue. Right. Yeah. And how we did that was we use an active distiller's yeast. So yeast that like Rieger uses or Holiday whiskey makers. So we use their yeast, and then we ferment it to about 14 or 15% alcohol. And then so we're making essentially a 14 or 15% like alcohol, whatever. And then we dilute it down to 4%. And so when we do that, you get 4% alcohol, but you're eliminating all of those off flavors, all of those like those alcohol like it creates like, if you ever have like a seltzer and you're like, man, there was just something on the backside. It's driven from the yeast, from the alcohol. So we ferment it very high, and then dilute it down to 4%, and that makes it a cleaner tasting. But then it's also
is that why fruit in it is important?
Yes. Okay. And that's it. So, and that was the other thing too, is like, so we dilute it down. And we knew that, like, our brewers are flavor makers. You know, we're known for interesting flavors in our beer. Right. And we wanted to separate ourselves away from, we didn't want any single flavor. We didn't want to have, here's a grape and here's a cherry and here's a pineapple. Right. We're like, we want to have interesting fruit. So, like, our first 4 quirks were strawberry, lemon, basil. So we knew we wanted to have some fruit elements and then like an herbal component to it that's just light on the backside. It's not like a basil drink. Just a hint of it. Yeah. Blackberry sage, right? So again, you're taking fruit and an herb. Cherry blossom and lime. So you're taking cherry blossoms and lime. And then pear yuzu. So we're taking pear, fruit juice, and then a little bit of yuzu for some, like, to give it some sweetness. Gotcha. Or that citrus kind of character. So
go ahead, man. I'm gonna keep chopping it up with them. No, keep on. I still got pellets. Go ahead, man. So you were saying, you do all that work, man. Yep. Go ahead.
So we wanted to have interesting but good flavors. We also wanted to use natural ingredients. We didn't want to have anything artificial in there, so we use real fruit juice. Right. Real fruit juice, real flavors. And then we launched it in 2020 during COVID, actually. It was during COVID it came out there. So we didn't have an opportunity to sample it like at the point of purchase. Right. We just had to let it do its talking. Right. And what was meant to be a side hustle, just to kind of offset some losses we experienced from other seltzers, it took off. And then it took off in such a way that people were like, what's next? What are you going to do next?
Right.
And so then our, like our brewers and our other flavor makers here were like, let's go to the drawing board. Let's kind of recreate. Let's do that again.
Right.
And so we started developing new quirk flavors.
Gotcha.
2 years later, we had our first limited release, which was Rocket Pop, which is kind of like, it's really draws on like the nostalgic feeling of like, chasing the ice cream truck and buying like a bomb pop out of it. Yeah, that was it. And so that worked really well. Like Lake of the Ozarks was like one of our biggest markets for quirk in the summertime. So we went really hard there. And then it just continues to grow. And we do, every year we send out a consumer survey to everyone that subscribes to our email or that follows us on social media.
Right.
And we always ask them, we do one for beer and one for quirk. And we ask them like, what are you interested in? What do you like? What draws you? And for quirk, a lot of people are like, we love innovation. We love new flavors. So then it was like, okay, we're just going to keep making new flavors.
Right.
And then, until we hit some balance.
Right.
And so right now we have 4 mix packs and then we have a couple of different single flavors, but it was very deliberate too. So like even if you look at so quirk is kind of the brand, right?
Right.
But there is a diamond logo, and it says Boulevard Beverage Company. We wanted to have a little bit of separation. Like this isn't beer, for people who might see our logo, see Boulevard Brewing Company, buy this and be like, this beer shit.
And that probably is the reason why I didn't even know Boulevard Beer made that, to be honest with you. Because I am so used to seeing Boulevard Beer, the logo.
The logo.
The big logo.
Yep.
Right.
And we started with 2 separate social channels. Like Quirk has its own social media channel, and it's for people who want seltzer news, because there are people who are like, well, I want beer updates, I want beer information, I want beer videos. And then there are people who are like, I'm diehard seltzer fans. There was this one lady who followed us on social media. I think it was the second year that Quirk was out, and she was, every time she posted, she was posting an update on the number of quirks that she had. And it was really fun and silly.
Right.
I mean, it was like, she's like, posting today, this is my 435th, quirk. And then like the next day she was like, went to a Royals game, they went to double innings, so now I'm at 450, like that kind of, it was really funny to see people really embrace quirk as a brand. It continues to grow.
Well, some of the, I will say, I mean, you could see the beer companies out there, they're all dipping into this now.
Oh yeah,
they're all dipping into this now.
I think a lot of the beer community was resistant for a while, because you had like old school beer people who were like, resist like seltzers for girls, and like, not if you make a really good one, then it's, this is for everybody. Anybody can appreciate these flavors. And so we were, Quirk was just embraced so quickly and grew so fast that it was like, we need to continue the focus, the quality, really maintain the quality.
Sure.
I mean, it grew like wickedly fast. Like it went from, we thought it might be like 2 to 5% of our total business.
Right.
Now it's like 40%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bonkers how big it is.
And is that out in multiple states as well?
We start, when we launched Quirk kind of nationwide, or any of our wholesalers that were buying Boulevard beer had access to buy this.
Okay.
And then we saw certain markets where it did really well, and then certain markets where it fell flat, and then we had to pull back. One of our biggest Quirk markets, I promise you won't guess, it's Montana. Montana is one of our biggest. Outside of Kansas City, Montana is a massive quirk market.
Shout out Montana. We got people in Montana
love
watching
Montana.
this.
Is that Yellowstone? No, that's not Yellowstone. Is it?
Yeah.
Yellowstone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, Bozeman. We have some lovely people in Bozeman. Bozeman, Whitefish, Helena. I mean, Montana is a huge quirk market for us. Yeah,
that's awesome.
And then we sent it to Florida, and it did really well there. The way my brain worked is like, quirk is in a can is perfect for a beach. Who has more beaches than Florida? It's all one beach, right? And then it did okay, but not in a way that a state like Montana, for some reason, it's under 12 feet of snow, and they're still just crushing some Cubans, right?
They own it.
Listen, man, they ain't the only ones when it's 12 feet of snow.
Right. You want to forget there's 12 feet of snow outside. You have a couple more quirks.
We need to forget this. That's incredible, man. Gotta ask you this, man. You talked a little bit about people saying, what's next? So we want to ask you that question, man. What is next for Boulevard Brewing Company, man?
So sometimes when we're looking ahead, sometimes you have to turn your head and look back behind you a little bit, right?
Yeah.
We had a beer that we did in the it started in the 90s and into the 2000s, and it never quite clicked for whatever reason, one reason or the other. And that's dry stout. Boulevard Dry Stout. That was, when I first started bartending in Kansas City, I worked at an Irish pub out by the Speedway, and we had a tap tower that had wheat, pale ale, and dry stout.
Yeah.
Now it was an Irish pub, so we also had like Guinness, we had Beamish, we had a couple other different stouts, and dry stout held its own a little bit, and it was a phenomenal beer. But for one reason or the other, the market turned one way, and dry stout was not that. Stouts were not that way. I mean, like all stouts kind of hurt. We're seeing this stout renaissance right now, and we're like nationwide, kind of worldwide, really. Like there's this big push moving back to these old school, classic. I mean, as a style of beer has been around for hundreds of years. And so we're like, we have this recipe in our back pocket. We have new brewing techniques where we can make this beer better than even what we were doing at the time. So now it is, it's on tap at that bar right there. As kind of like, again, it's a test, but because it's a nitro line, it's not on the small bar, it's on the big bar. And I will tell you, there's 30 beers on that wall right there, and for the past month that it's been on, it has been double the volume of every other beer on that wall.
Really?
Is that
and it's wild. So we're like, hell yeah. Like, I love seeing this renaissance of like, people are like, I wouldn't say moving away from like really experimental, innovative beer styles that have like 6 fruits and herbs and spices, and it's like, what is Kentucky Fried Chicken right now, right? 35 original spices. But there is, it seems to be this movement to the moving back to the classics, like an amber ale. People long for like an amber ale or brown ale or red ale or stout. So because it has done so well, I think it's going to get its own package and its own draft, and it will probably be out in the market later this year. And I'm really excited
dry stout
to see. I mean, dry stout, like it doesn't sound exciting. It's like dry stout. What is that? It's just while it's black. I mean, it's black. It's a dark bear. It's about dark as you can get.
I'm gonna like
but because it's dry, it's not filling. It's not sweet. It's not. Yeah. It's. I mean, there's some sweetness to it, but it's not like sugary sweet, right?
Got you.
It's like a black coffee with one sugar. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Really roasty, really easy to drink, and it's on nitro, so it's super creamy.
Right.
That's what I've been grooving on for a while.
Okay.
So I'm really excited to see that, we actually have results. We can see the sales numbers that people are trying it, and multiple people are coming back to it. Not just like, try it, done, checked it off a list, sticker book. People are coming back to it. So I'm really excited for when that comes out. And then, next year, like you said, we've got FIFA here in Kansas City next year, so we got some plans coming that I can't really talk about just yet.
I got it.
Listen, man,
I mean, we're fans of Space Camper, right?
Same.
What's your top 5? What's your top 5?
My personal top 5.
Here's the deal.
No, that's a great question.
There's so many, man. There's so many. We got the barrels. We got the IPAs. We got the quirks. We got, we got so many.
Sure.
You have so many here. What's your top 5?
My personal, and that's the thing, is like, you have to understand this is subjective, right? This is my personal top 5.
Somebody might follow your lead, man. Right. Or they might be the same.
Somebody might watch this, might create a clip out of it and say, there's top 5 beers you got to try at Boulevard Beer.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I would say right now, my top 5 are Saison Brett, which is, we talked about earlier. That was the genesis for Tank 7. So the original beer. Yep. It's a Saison. It's fruity, but it's funky and it's earthy and it's super complex. And it's 8.5%. It's just a beautiful, a beautiful beer. Okay. And I was a fan of Saison Brett before I even worked at Boulevard. I was like, man, this beer is special. Yeah. So Saison Brett, and in fact, when Jackie and I went up to get those first round of beers, the bartender Carl was like, Saison Brett, and I'm like, no, not right now. I'm gonna have a Space Camper. Saison Brett's 8.5%, but I drink it too quick. So Saison Brett is by far and away my number one Boulevard beer.
Okay.
Right. And the bar is trained to have one ready for me. Saison Brett's my number one. Space Camper Cosmic IPA, what we're drinking right now, would be firmly in my number two. Okay. I definitely have it more often than I do Saison Brett. Okay. Space Camper is a beer that's always in my fridge.
Yes.
And it's always a beer that I try to turn people onto, especially if they're like, I don't really like IPAs. Okay.
Sure.
Like, okay, we're in the Midwest. We like sensibility. We like balance. Yeah. I think Cosmic IPA is a very balanced IPA.
Gotcha.
It's not aggressively bitter, super drinkable. Number three, I'm going to say Pale Ale.
Yes, sir.
Because Pale Ale was the first Boulevard I ever had when I moved here in 2001. It was the first Boulevard I ever tried. Actually, the first beer I tried was 10 penny, but then I quickly went to Pale Ale. So I would say like Saison Brett, Space Camper Cosmic, Pale Ale, Tank 7. And I only put Pale Ale above Tank 7 because it's got that nostalgia for me. Every time I drink it, it reminds me of where I am. It reminds me of what led me here. It reminds me of the brewery. And it tastes like, Pale Ale to me tastes like Kansas City.
Hey.
Right? It's like history in a glass, but it's super drinkable. Pairs with anything. You have it with some barbecue. Yes, have it with some tacos. And what, is that number 4? We have 4?
Yeah, that's 4.
Right. Number 5 right now is a relatively new beer that it's new this year and it's only out right now, but it's the beer I've been to 3 baseball games so far. I've been to the K 3 times this year, and it's the beer I have every time I go there. I had one Friday night. It was hot as shit outside, and I was like, I need something refreshing, something drinkable. Can we cuss on this? I'm sorry. I've been dropping F-bombs left and right. We have a beer called Easy Orange. Easy Orange. That beer is insane how good it is.
I tried that.
It's in cans, it's in draft, and it's a summer seasonal, so it'll only be around in the summertime. I was in Des Moines a couple weeks ago and was at this at a bar, and they were like, we're looking for a good summer beer to have on, and I was like, we should try this beer. Poured some samples of it, and they were like, this is incredible. It's just light. Right. It's bright, it's citrusy, it's juicy. Right. It's just the perfect hot weather beer. Easy Orange. Yeah. And it's got a beautiful label.
Man. D-Ross showing me a photo now.
I'm showing a
Easy
picture,
Orange.
and I don't know, my boy Carlos Ramirez, man, he just took a picture earlier today, right? So I'm shout him out because he got a 12-pack of Crown Town, and they got a picture of Easy Orange, and I was like, ironically, we're sitting down with them.
Easy Orange.
We're sitting down with them, you know.
Oh, I'm good.
But man, I don't know.
That's great, man. I mean, listen, I think your preference don't matter.
No,
you're probably one of the experts we're going to talk to, here at Boulevard Beer. So to me, it's like, hey, listen, Kansas City, if you want to try Boulevard Brewery, you got to come here, try one of those beers. You will not be disappointed.
For sure.
I think it's really dope, man. So thank you.
Yeah,
thank
of course.
you. I
You're
appreciate
welcome,
that.
for sure. Yeah.
Listen, man, we're going to start wrapping up. We got some fun things we're going to do with all of our guests, man, okay? So appreciate your time. Appreciate all the conversation. Fun question. Do you remember when you had your first beer?
I do, actually. So my dad was a big fan of Miller High Life.
Oh,
the pony bottles, the short little pony bottles. Yeah. And in the fridge,
champagne of beer,
champagne of beers. He always, in the fridge, kept that, that bottom rack, like where at home, it's like ranch dressing, mayonnaise, shit like that. That bottom rack in the door, it fit exactly 12 High Life pony bottles. So there was always ice cold, short pony bottles of High Life. And I think I was maybe 14 or 15, 13 or 14. A buddy of mine came over to my house, and we were going to go camp. I lived in Southwest Virginia, so I was like right off the Appalachian Trail, so we used to camp outside all the time. And so we were on our way out, and his name is Kirk Darnell, and Kirk was like, hey, why don't we take a couple of those beers from your dad? He won't miss them. And I was like, okay. So we, on our way out, I'm sure it's totally obvious, right? Like my parents knew what we were doing. I'm just checking to see if we had any hot dogs left. What it just like,
I know it holds 12.
We're just like putting High Life pony bottles in the coat pockets and stuff. And so we went up there, and then he and I each had a High Life pony bottle. And I I don't know that I liked it.
Yeah.
But I had to pretend.
How old were you?
I think it was like 13 or 14, right? Yeah. But I also remember my first craft beer would have been, what was the name of that brewery? Flying Dog. It was Flying Dog. I had just come home from boot camp and then went out with some buddies and had them Flying Dog. Okay. And I was like, I'm sorry, Flying Dog, but at the time I was 19. I didn't know any better. I was like, this is terrible. It was probably an IPA. I was like, this is awful. Yeah. Why do people pay money for this? It was terrible. But the first beer I ever had where I was like, there's something special here was when I was I was stationed in San Angelo, Texas, and my buddies and I went out to there's like an English pub, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a black and tan, and that's where you take like pale ale. It was like Bass and then Guinness.
Yes.
And so my buddy was, I don't know, he went to like Brown, and he was educated, and he was whatever, and he was like, oh, you got to try this. This is great. And I was really leery because I was like, beer is really black. I don't like dark beer. Yeah. Whatever. And I had that black and tan. And I remember being blown away by the flavors and how everything kind of changed and like with every sip. It's just every sip. I was like, this is what it can be. Yeah. And then from then on, I had this a journal. I was in the Corps, and I would tape every beer label that I tried. Yeah. It was like Untapped in the early days, right? Yeah. It was like so I had this journal where I had I would peel the label off, and every beer I would try. I don't know how many beers I tried, but and that was when I was like really started appreciating beer.
That's nice, man.
All right, I got one. If you want to say, if there's any other beer that and Boulevard's not an option, is there another one you'll drink?
So, and this is an easy one, and it can keep me off the hook. I know, right? High Life is awesome, actually.
It is.
High Life is
still drink
like a little spigot with some Aperol on it. If I'm not going to drink a Boulevard, I will honestly, there's loads of beers out there that I love. And sometimes I get choice paralysis. Everyone does, right? Sure, you're like, man, there's 100 taps here. What am I going to have?
Listen, real quick, not to take away from your story, but years ago, I'm talking about a couple decades ago, D-Rod and I walked into Frickin' Frack off 39th.
Hell yeah.
They had the bottles of beer of every beer they had. Mm-hmm. And we were like, we just want to start at that end and get to that end.
We call it the line, man. Yeah. We'll drink the line.
Drink the line. Yeah. And then you walk around the corner of Mr. Z's and you get whatever they got there. Yeah.
Man.
Go ahead. So I'm going to keep the 39th Street story alive here. Yeah. So if I'm not going to drink a Boulevard and I'm not going to show preference to anybody, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the High Dive Lounge. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to order a mystery beer.
Mystery beer.
Do you guys know what a mystery beer is?
We know whatever.
You know it? Well, yeah, they do, but it's an old. So at High Dive, they've got behind the bar, they've got an old Coke can machine, and that's got a bunch of yard beers in it. It's got like PBR, Hams, old style, whatever. Yeah. But then there's a couple of the buttons because you say like I want a PBR and then hit a button and the PBR comes out,
on it.
Right? And then they've got some that are mystery. So the thing is you don't know what's going to come out. So you give them $2.50. Like here's $2.50. They hit a button and literally anything in a 12-ounce can can come out. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do, and that's a really fun way to experience new beers. It's also a really fun experience to experience some shit beer. There are some bad beers in there,
there's some horrible
there's
beers.
Great beer. And there's shit beer, and there's everything in between, and you just never know what you're going to get. So
I love the names, man. The names is how I pick a beer. I'm like, you know what? I like give me Flying Monkey. I never had it.
Listen, I'll tell you what, man. This is a story. I don't know if I told you, JL, but a shit name. I picked a beer one time at Gomer's, man. I went to Gomer's. Yeah. This fucking beer was called Elephant. Have you ever heard of Elephant?
Elephant? No, I don't think I know Elephant.
This was a long time ago, JL. I picked up this fucking six-pack. Elephant, fucking, I get it. It was the most horrendous thing I've ever. I took a drink. I was like, oh my God. I tried it again. Nah, fuck no. I dumped them all out, man. Whoever created Elephant, you are not welcomed on this podcast.
I'm going to Google it later. Now I'm morbidly curious.
I'm not going to say their name because they're actually pretty popular, but there's actually a Mexican beer that I do not like.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's nasty. I got offered one the other day and I was like, nah, I'm good. You know? I just don't like it, man. I just don't like it.
And I drink everything. I mean, shit.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm saying. I mean, I try to. Yeah. All right. Craziest food pairing with a beer that you would say, try this?
Oh,
it sounds crazy.
That is an
but try this
question. Craziest food buried. So one of my favorite things to do is it is like I host a lot of beer dinners, and that's where I work with a restaurant.
Okay.
The chef creates the menu, gives it to me, and says, "What beer would you recommend to go with this?" And there's a lot of people like when they're like, "Does beer and food go together?" And like, and I love it when it works, right? When people are like, "Oh, I totally get this."
Yeah.
And one of my favorite ways to end a beer dinner is with obviously a dessert,
Sure.
right? And a lot of times you'll get a dessert that's like a peanut butter or fudge or peanut butter, whatever, is to pair Berry Noir, which is a sour, tart, berry-forward beer with any peanut butter or chocolate dessert.
Okay.
And it's like creating a peanut butter jelly sandwich in your mouth because it's a good example of showing how flavors can contrast, how flavors can, let's see, we've done like, we did a beer recently with peach rings. The peach rings gummy, like chamois coated peach rings.
Right.
That goes well with really any like fruit forward beer.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to think of like a really bizarre one. Man, nothing is coming to mind. I'm sure like tonight at like 11:30, I'm gonna wake up and be like,
2 o'clock,
octopus.
but I got this.
Exactly.
Have you ever been to the farmhouse?
I have, yeah.
Hey, our boy Vince, man, he's a chef there, man. He creates.
I would love to do a beer dinner.
He's the owner chef.
Collab with him, man.
He's
please put me in touch.
Yeah, he's dope. We would love to put you in touch with him.
Yeah, man.
All right, we're going to do a fun activity real quick. Not that wasn't fun. People, Places, and Things, Kansas City, Enterrupt KC, the podcast. All right, so we're going to give you 2 options.
Okay.
You got to pick one, and you got to tell us why. But before D-Rod gives us first one, worst intersection in Kansas City.
Oh, my gosh. If I have to say worst intersection in Kansas City, it's 43rd Street and Southwest Trafficway. That is my personal...
Westport Road and Southwest Trafficway?
Westport Road and Southwest Trafficway.
Yeah.
That is my personal... But I lived in like Midtown. I mean, almost the entirety of my time in KC, I lived in that area.
Yeah.
And I've seen some shit go down in that intersection.
Man.
It is a nightmare to me.
Yeah.
That's
no doubt.
that
You and many other people who've answered that question.
Ironically, J.O. just created a short with that on there, man. People talking about
classic,
that, man.
Go watch it.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, D-Rod.
Okay. Westport Flea Market versus the Peanut.
Oh, wow. You're hitting the feels here. Okay. I'm going to say Peanut.
Okay.
Now, my friend Nate, who hosts trivia at the Westport Flea Market, is going to be mad at me because I still go down there and get the burger and see him.
On Thursdays?
Yes, but I have to say the Peanut. And I'm going to say the Peanut because I adore but also which peanut, right? So that's the other thing too, is like South Plaza peanut, I think to me is a little bit different than like the downtown peanut or the one in Mission, right?
It's a different vibe.
Vibes. I was at the Peanut in South Plaza one time, and everyone's got a peanut story, right?
Yes,
everyone has.
Everybody
so
does.
I was sitting there, and it was Plaza Art Fair, right? And I needed to escape. I was like, I got to get out of here. And so I walk over to Peanut, and I was like, I'm just going to have some wings and some beer. And so, and you've been there, right? Your feet stick to the floor, everything sticks to the bar. It's just kind of like right there. And so this couple comes in and sits at the bar, and they're sitting there for like maybe 5 minutes, and they're like, picking their water glass up and it sticks, whatever, and they're like, we're out of here. So they get up and they walk out, and the bartender's like, yeah, I wouldn't eat here either, rather leave. And so I'm dying laughing at that. I'm like, that's hilarious. But not literally, like as they walk out, 2 guys walk in, sit down at their same spot. And so the guy sits down and he asked the bartender, he was like, can I see your wine list? And the bartender is like, yeah, we're not really solvent at the moment with our wine list. It's at the printer, but I can, can I recommend something? We've got a really nice white. And the guy's like, that's fine. I'll just have a glass of white wine. So the bartender reaches behind the bar, pulls out a box of Franzia, and takes a white linen and throws it over his arm, and then gets the guy's glass and sets it in front of him and goes, this is the white today, sir. And like, squirts a little in his glass, and like if sir would like to smell the wine or taste it before pouring the glass. And the guy looking at him was just like, where am I? And he's like, oh, very, very good, sir, very good, sir. fills out the wine glass.
God.
And I, at that moment, I was like, I'm going to carve my name in this table.
Yeah.
I love this place.
Yeah.
This is like
Classic,
amazing.
man.
They don't take themselves too serious. But the other reason I like it is like, if you ever meet someone from outside of Kansas City and they're like, oh, I went to Kansas City. I was like, oh, where'd you go? Like, I did this, I was like, did you go to the Peanut? And they're like, yeah, I did. Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, did you like it? And they're like, yeah, but I made the mistake of I wanted a dozen wings.
Yeah.
And I made the mistake of ordering a dozen wings at the Peanut, and I'm still eating my leftovers. It was like I didn't realize those were pterodactyl wings.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
Yeah. All right, I'm assuming you do eat barbecue.
I love barbecue.
I'm assuming you eat barbecue. So let's do Gates versus Q39.
Well, I have to give the edge to Q39 because I can get beer there. Like I can get like a Tank 7 and their smoked wings. I think is magic.
Best wings on the planet. That's how they name it on the menu.
Yep, they are phenomenal.
Yes, sir.
The Tank 7 and wings is a pairing that you cannot go wrong with.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try that later this week.
Okay, let's do Town Topic hamburgers.
Yeah.
Versus Tay's hamburgers.
If Tay's was open as late as Town Topic, they would get the edge. But you go to Town Topic. Town Topic is a late night burger and a show.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, you're right.
That's
right,
it. It's like dinner theater, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's dinner theater where you get the dinner when you're home, right? Like you go and you order and you just watch.
What are you getting there?
People watch. I usually just get I always get a double cheeseburger, and then I always get a hot dog every single time.
And
then I get 50-50 onion rings and fries.
Okay. No truck stop?
No truck stop for me.
Well,
I like keep things simple.
I shared this with D-Rod. So I went to Town Topic a couple weeks ago, and I tried to order breakfast, and this was at 7:01. All right, and I ain't hating Town Topic. It's just a real story.
Wait, 7:01. Which one did you go to?
7:01 p.m. Broadway.
Okay.
And I'm like, yeah, I want, this and that. I wanted the breakfast, whatever. And they're like, oh, no, we don't serve breakfast. And I'm like, hang on, what? I mean, Adam, been going there since I was a kid.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm like, huh? And they're like, yeah, we don't serve breakfast. When did that start? Oh, we started this, whatever. And I'm like, what time to what time, 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. we don't serve breakfast no more.
That's crazy.
Wow.
And so, man, I was just like, man, my heart.
Yeah.
What else
crushed.
is there to do? Huh?
Yeah, like you got to get the 3 a.m. truck stop, man.
You gotta get the truck stop, man.
So yeah, I mean, I feel that.
Shout out to Tay's though. Tay's owns. Like North Kansas
Tay's
City
is solid, man.
And
their hot dog's fire.
Their hot dog is fire.
Hot dog's fire.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, last question I got, man. Tell us you're from KC without telling us you're from KC.
Oh, dang. Okay. Half of all of the T-shirts I have, over half, 90% of the T-shirts in my closet are logoed with the city I'm from.
Let's go.
That's
you know what I mean?
it, man.
That's the thing, right? Like you live in Kansas City,
Represent.
you got Charlie Hustle, you got Royals, you got Chiefs, you got Current, you got Boulevard, you got all the bootleg shirts you can get on the court. You know what I mean? Like
City Market. It used to be a City Market.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Right.
I think that. I mean, Kansas City, we wear our literal hearts on our sleeves.
Got to.
I mean, look at us. Well, D-Rod's not right now, but between you and I, we're kind of covered in KC here.
I like beer. That's definitely a Kansas City.
It could be. It really could be.
He got the tats too, by the way.
We give because we give a lot of tours. We get a lot of people from out of town, and it used to be like we'd have people come here for let's say like the Royals are playing the Yankees, right? Mm-hmm. The place would be full of Yankee fans.
Yeah.
Or when KC plays Denver, or not Denver, but Denver works. You would have like Broncos fans here, right?
Yeah.
Like because people travel to the games and then come here. And then I would give a tour to people and be like, is there something else happening in KC this weekend?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think so. Why? And they're like, I was just downtown and like everybody had a Kansas City shirt on. I'm like, oh no, that's just us.
Yeah.
That's just what we do.
Man.
You go to New York City, they like laugh at people who wear I love New York shirts. And they're like, that's on you, man. Yeah. I love my city. Yeah. I love my city so much. And I hold it accountable, right, too. That's the other thing, too. I think we love our city. We hold it accountable. Yeah. And, we love our mayor. Mayor Q is awesome. He rules.
Fixed the Southwest Traffic Way and Westport Road.
Right, yeah. Put it on your list, yeah.
43rd Street, man. All right,
man.
I got a question. I got one. All right. Like JL said, man, Enterrupt KC, people, places, and things, Kansas City. What's one place you feel best represents Kansas City, man?
Recently, I have to say CPKC Stadium. Have you guys been to a game out there?
We haven't. It's hard to get tickets, man.
It is hard to get tickets, but if you can, you should go, because I can't think of another, like recently, another place when you're in that stadium and you're surrounded by every like ethnicity, every orientation, like multiple language, like it feels like the heart of the city, and there's so much pride, and it's sold out, like 11,500 people that's the stadium. That's how many people are there. Since it opened. Since it opened. And I feel like, it's the first, purpose-built stadium for women's sports.
Right.
That's innovation, and that's what KC does, right? Mm-hmm. We innovate. We're trendsetters. The first one, it's in the heart of downtown in an area that I thought would never be developed.
Right.
And
man,
now that it's starting
there,
it's wow. It's an easy stadium to navigate. So it's like, that's what the Midwest is about, right? We're like easy to navigate. We're easy to get along with. And it's so passionate. And the people there have so much pride, and the energy and the crowd and the players are fun to watch. And Space Camper, I'm a shameless plug here, but Space Camper is the #1 beer sold in that stadium. That makes me happy. But that's not why I think that stadium is like an exceptional. I mean, you could name like a couple different barbecue places, right? You could it would hardly be say that like the smokestack on our brewery is not iconic, right? Coffins is the Performing Arts Center is cool. It's perfect.
For sure.
But really, I think recently to see like, little girls from this tall to, your great grandma at that stadium, all getting to see people play a sports that look like them is just magic. It's just the coolest thing to have, role models that, and not just, kids of all gender. This is what this is what an athlete looks like,
right?
And it looks like us. And I just think there's just something so cool about that stadium.
I believe it, man, and I feel the same way, man. We
got to get to a game, D-Rod.
We got to get to it. We've been talking about it, man. We've been talking about it. We just haven't made that move yet.
Adam. Thank you, man.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Thank
your time.
It was incredible,
Appreciate
man.
the conversation, man. Is there anything you want to share to our audience before we let you go?
Oh, no. I just keep doing what you're doing, man. I embrace anything that highlights Kansas City. There's just so many nooks and crannies of the city that not everyone can get to. And so I just love and I embrace anything that can highlight and showcase things that aren't on your FYP, right? That's just not there for. There's just so much, right? We have so much to learn from every single person that you meet. Everyone's got a story, and I just keep doing what you're doing, man.
Love that, man. Appreciate you.
And by that I mean drinking Boulevard beer. That's
Boulevard beer,
man. Here we go. I want to get one of those. What you got on hold over there?
It's too good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna get one of those.
With that, man. Interrupt KC, JL,
D-Rod, man.
Like, follow, share, subscribe, everybody. Come holler at Boulevard Brewing Company. Come holler at our boy Adam Hall, man.
Yes, sir.
Here. You already know the spot, man. We don't even got to tell you where it is.
Yeah.
Come check out this place, man.
2501 Southwest Boulevard.
2501. Let's go. Everybody.
Can't miss it.
Peace.
Bye.